384 Goddamn religion. Sunnah and Suratun. Muhammad's despicable life, Allah's repulsive words. 5. An enduring hoax. Even if we sent down something in writing and they touched it, they'd say, this nothing but a hoax, a delusional falsification. Quran 6.007. It is in the 6th surah, Al-An'am the cattle, that we find Allah particularly desperate to demonstrate his viability, and yet the harder he tries, the less credible his story becomes, especially in context. The problem begins with the voice of the Quran speaking of himself in third person, and it is exacerbated with the realization that an individual who is soliciting praise is unworthy of it. This is particularly true when it is demanded of an inferior being who is threatened with torture for non-compliance. Quran 6.001 The burning praises to Allah, the one who measured and proportioned, created, the lofty, heavens, and the ground, earth, and made al-Zulm the cruel lords of oppression, obscurity and tyranny, darknesses, and al-Nura the fire, light. Then those who kafir are reconciled, disbelieved, by him with their Lord adjust properly dealing equitably with him, equate others with him. While any egomaniac can claim to be God, and many have, the hard part is doing so with a modicum of credibility. In this regard, Allah/who/ha is an abject failure. He's in a quandary. To play God, he must position himself as the creator and, yet, since he is devoid of creativity, he's forced to misappropriate Yahowah's explanation. But it comes with baggage he cannot carry 385 because God likes to share the limelight and engage with co-workers, family, and friends. However, since Satan hates humanity and is decidedly antisocial, sharing credit rubs him the wrong way, which is why he constantly protests that he works alone, no partners, no co-workers, no friends, no sons, and God forbid, no daughters. But that's a hell of a problem since, in the Torah, the moment Adam is created we find he and God interacting together. And of course, Abraham was God's friend, Moses was his co-worker, and Daud is his beloved son. In the Torah, Yahowah explains in Bereshit / in the beginning / Genesis when, how, and why he created the universe. His explanation is original, credible, accurate, in the correct order, at the proper place in his overall story, conveyed only once, and it transitions immediately into developing a mutually enjoyable relationship with humankind. By contrast, in the Quran, Allah's remedial claims to creation are always plagiarized, never explained nor credible, typically inaccurate, repeated, some 100 times, and strewn haphazardly throughout the text. There is never so much as a hint of a relationship developed between the pretend God and humanity. So, why would anyone believe a wannabe God by a different name pretending to be Yahowah when the come lately can't even regurgitate the original, exceedingly well documented, story credibly? One of Allah/ha/ whose many problems is his unfamiliarity with Hebrew or Arabic. Here, his name, Allah, actually means to for him. Rather than using a derivative of bara, to create, he defaults to kalak, which is to measure and proportion. While claiming to speak Arabic, which is from the Hebrew Arab, he uses the Hebrew word for heaven, shama, which is transliterated as samawati in the plural form, but does not follow through and uses the Hebrew word for earth, which is eretz. His 386 choice, arda, means wild ass in the parent language. But that is just the beginning of the oddities because al-Zalim, vocalized here as al-Zulm, is used throughout the Quran as one of the two most common ways of identifying Allah's most formidable foes, which is strange because since Zalim means cruel lord and subjugating tyrant. Zalim correctly describes Allah as oppressive and denigrating toward humanity, oppressing and subjugating the world. Nevertheless, it is used hypocritically and inaccurately to depict wrongdoers destined for the fires of hell. However, here it is rendered as darknesses by translators, even though it is inconsistent with the word's primary dictionary and normalized Quranic connotations. And while Islamic scholars want Muslims to believe that Allah created darkness and light, the words actually read, the burning praises to Allah, the one who measured and proportioned the lofty and the ground and made al-Zulm the cruel lords of oppression and al-Nura the blazing fire. The ungod not only uses the ZLM root many hundreds of times to describe those he intends to torture, he deploys the NWR root to depict the fires of hell in which they are to be burned. The next wrongly selected word, kafir, is presented as disbeliever throughout the Quran and as infidel among Muslims when it, based upon the Hebrew kafar, actually means to be reconciled. As the ultimate pejorative in Islam, identifying Allah's most ardent foes, the kafar/kafir actually represent life's crowning achievement. This exceedingly small subset of people is comprised of those who have capitalized upon Yahowah's means to reconcile our relationship with him through the Berith and Micri Y. And as such, they are responsible for appending Allah's plans for his last day by making Yahowah's family reunion a grand celebration. Continuing to bungle his own diatribe, Allah, after having made the Zalim/cruel lord/wrongdoers and the 387 Nura/fire, claims that the kafir/reconciled/disbelievers are by him/ with their rabbi/ and their lord such that they yidaluna/ properly adjust to deal equitably with him/ equating others with him. Therefore, one is left to wonder if the Islamic God wants to be praised for measuring the sky and ground and then making cruel lords along with the fires to roast them. Then in the next breath, is Allah admitting defeat, suggesting that the reconciled have made amends with their God. Any which way, the only thing which is certain is that Satan is inept at playing God. The Suratun reads as if the words were chosen at random, the burning praises, inflamed eulogy, and thanks to for him, the one who measured and proportioned the lofty names and the fertile ground and made the cruel lords of oppression and subjugation and the blazing fire. Then picking up afterwards, those who conceal they are reconciled with their exalted one, rabbi, or lord adjusting properly to dealing equitably with him. This word salad composed of opposing ideas, was followed by another illiterate protestation. Quran 6.002 He, the one who measured and proportioned, created, you from mud, clay, then picking up and repairing afterward, he caught a completed and ended, carried and killed, decreed and decided ajlan an appointed term or predetermined time, for you to die, and ajlan an appointed term or predetermined time musaman specified by name as a lofty attribute of heaven, indahu to go out, deviating and rebellious, obstinate and transgressing with him, for you to be resurrected, then. Afterwards, yet, you doubt, disputing. Allah has a way with words. And yet, even with the grandiloquent pomposity of elocution, we are left to wonder why he picked up the mud in the first place. Craving control, and thus relinquishing any possibility of a loving relationship, Satan would have his slaves believe that everything is predestined, including the moment they die. And while predestination would render creation, the 388 human experience, and Islam meaningless, the wannabe God has the audacity to suggest that the rebellious and obstinate are ill-advised to dispute his veracity. One of the many challenges faced by wannabe gods is that a great deal is expected and it is hard to remember a sufficient quantity of lies to make it all seem real. Therefore, in the Quran, man is frequently created in different ways, all absurd, and never for a rational purpose. Being among the least articulate of wannabe gods, Allah was constantly battling a credibility problem, something Muhammad was exacerbating. Unable to provide evidence or an argument supporting their claims, they shifted the blame to their audience. They bemoaned that everyone missed the undisclosed signs or misread them and turned away. And yet based upon Allah's condescending rant, the initial victims of these hollow threats and bogus claims scoffed at them, affirming that sarcasm is, indeed, the proper retort. Quran 6.003 And He, Allahu, in the lofty names, heavens, and in the fertile ground, earth, He knows your secret and what you make public. And He knows what you acquire, earn. Quran 6.004 And not comes to them of any sign or mark from the signs or marks their Rabbi exalted, Lord, Master, and Owner but they are from it, Muradina taking place, presented, averse, and exposed, turning away. Quran 6.005 Then, lo, verily, they lied and denied the suitable requirement, the binding and obligatory, truth, when it came to them, but soon come to them exalted prophetic news what they were at it ridiculed and mocked. Allahu/ha/hi, who evidently lacks a functional grasp of Arabic grammar or sufficient vocabulary, and who cannot keep his own stories straight, or even remember what he said from one statement to the next, would have Muslims believe that he knows what everyone has ever said, thought, or done throughout history. Then, in one of 389 many delusional moments, the ungod claims that their Lord had provided signs, marking his territory. But who was their Lord? For whom did he provide this evidence, where, and when? Instead, he doesn't even bother to describe the composition of his alleged proofs. The reasons why the unspecified signs were rejected were not conveyed. As such, this third-person diatribe was a waste of breath. And worse, the moment it turns deadly and destructive, the ungod is all in, with the voice changing to first-person plural. Allah loves a good kill. Quran 6.006 Did not they see how many died, wasted, perishing, and destroyed from before them of generations? We had established them in the fertile ground so what why not we established for you? And Arasalna we sent a messenger of the lofty sky and heavens upon them flowing copiously and we made the flowing flow from underneath them. Then, we destroyed them, wasting them as they died for their tails and following too closely so as to be spotted, sins, and we raised during the night from after them last generations. It is among the more despicable and despotic boasts attributed to a god of a popular religion. Allah, should we refer to Satan by this name, is not only bragging, he's delusional, claiming that 7th century Arabs should have been able to see the extent of his carnage. He is claiming to have wasted entire generations, killing everyone. And yet, Allah/who/ha is miffed because he believes that he had been kind to these people, establishing them on fertile ground, sending down the skies above them, and priming the flowing flows beneath them. Unhappy with their response to his odd forms of generosity, and non-sign neglect, the ungod decided to slaughter them and then boast about the horrendous crime he did not actually commit. And if that were not enough to recognize that the Islamic God was a danger to himself and humanity, Allah was so cavalier about genocide, he bragged that he replaced one generation of people with another. 390 Not only was every word of this psychotic, the Islamic God continued to wallow in his psychosis. Quran 6.007 Even if we sent down, revealed, to you something in writing, a book, in something shot, parchment, and they touched it with their hands, lo, would have said those who were reconciled, disbelieve, if this, then nothing but a distinct and apparent, clear, hoax, a beguiling and delusional falsification, and sorcery, magic. Displaying a defeatist attitude while trying to bolster his credentials and compete with Yahowah, was too much for Satan to bear. His rival just so happened to be God, and he had inspired a score of prophets to compose a consistent and accurate historical record of his people over 1,000 years. So in response, Satan insists that even if he had been able to provide a written account of his 22-year ordeal with his malcontent messenger, it wouldn't have mattered. Just as those who were listening called the Quran a delusional hoax, a written version would have fared far worse. And while that is undoubtedly true, by offering this hypothetical, Allah negated all of the other times he claimed to have sent the Quran down as a book. Obviously, he didn't, so now we know that he lied about the single most critical aspect of the Islamic religion, there was no Quran. And even if Allah had been able to write, a written version wouldn't have fooled anyone either. Therefore, in the first 7 verses of the 6th Suratun, we have discovered that the Islamic God was illiterate and psychotic, that he was deadly and delusional, and that there was no Quran. Quran 6.008 And they said, why has not been sent down to him an angel? And if we sent down an angel, verily, the command would have been decided. Thereafter, la yanzuruna nothing to see, consider, dazzle, or perplex, respite. Quran 6.009 And if we had made him an angel, lo, verily, we 391 made him feet, a man, to them what they wear. Quran 6.010 And lo, were brought down, disgraced, ridiculed, derided, and mocked by Rasuli with the sent messengers from before you. But surrounded those who looked down, mocked, jeered, taunted, and derided of them what they were at it brought down, ridiculed, and laughed at. Quran 6.011 Say, travel in the ground and see how is Aqaba successful persecution and punishment on the heels, and, the lying falsifiers and fabricators who deceive and disappoint, rejectors. After affirming that there was no book, and thus no Quran, Allah trips on his forked tongue again and admits that there were no angels either. And that's a two-pronged problem because the Islamized Gabriel, who was an angel in the Muslim version of replacement theology and not a man, was said to have been the reciter of the Quran. Also, Allah's lone contributions to the mass murder, plunder, and enslavement of Jews and Arabs had been bands of killer angels. So, what now? Allah is back to tooting his own impotent horn. And still in defeatist mode, Satan acknowledges that even if he had been able to muster a show of angels, his message was so obviously deceitful and demonic that no one would have believed him anyway. And of course, while there was no Quran and no Islamic Gabriel, and while Islam had but one Rasuli, a rotten one at that, Allah is insistent that there were many of them and that they were all mocked like his illiterate, sexually perverted, mass murdering, human trafficking, and thieving messenger of madness. But unable to name another of his own, or share anything of their message, Satan restyles Adam, Noah, Abraham, and Moses into Muhammad wannabes. And in every case, their mockers were mocked by the hissing snake. And should you not agree, burrow in the dirt along with him and check them out. 392 But as for who was fabricating what, it appears obvious since there are only two witnesses, Allah and Muhammad. And both sources, Sunnah and Suratun, Hadith and Quran, were comprised of lies and fabrications. Too bad for these sad sacks that they couldn't plead the fifth and keep from incriminating themselves. Equitable jurisprudence and a Bill of Rights would emerge in culture guided by other principles. Since the case against Islam is already won, the only reason that we are reassessing the evidence in this, the final Suratun we will review together, is to reinforce two realizations that were essential to delivering a guilty verdict against Muhammad and Allah. First, the more closely one examines their testimony the more damning it appears. And second, the prosecution's most indicting witnesses were the defendants. They continue to incriminate themselves. Our only other time through this Suratun was in the Dishonest Abe chapter of Volume 1 of Goddamn Religion Snake. That translation was developed in conjunction with the Noble Quran's word-by-word translation and interlinear. And now, we are examining every word independently to provide a considerably more correct and complete representation of what was actually conveyed. And in the process, we find Islam's ungod and non-prophet admitting that they were as delusional and demonic, as manipulative and controlling, as sadistic and psychotic as the evidence has painted them. Islam is a death cult for zombies. Evidently, Allah's Muslim mercenaries were unwilling to part with the skin of a goat or prized camel, so the snake decided to scribe his message upon himself. But alas, he must have shed that skin as part of his affinity for abrogation. Quran 6.012 Say, to whom what in the lofty and the 393 ground? Say, to Allahi. He has written upon himself the favor. Surely, he will collect and assemble you, putting you all together, on day the standing firm and rising, resurrection, no doubt about it. Those who have lost, cheating and beguiling themselves, then not safe, no belief in submission. There was never anything lofty about Islam, nor was anything written on Allahi/hu/ha or any place else in the Arabian desert. And there were no favors. Further, as we have discussed, there will be no resurrection in this religion known for keeping men and women down while bowing and prostrating. This is nothing more than lies piled on top of lies. Quran 6.013 And lahu for him what dwells quietly and submissively, abased and humble, in the night and flows, repulsed, day. And he hears, knows. Quran 6.014 Say, convey benefit other Allahi I take waliyan close, turn, friend, guard, protector. Creator by splitting and breaking, tearing asunder the high and lofty heavens and the ground while he who tastes and feeds, and not he swallows or is fed. Say, lo, I am commanded that I am first Islam obediently submitting and not be of al-mushrikina the ones who have friends and companions, who participate together, partner, and share, polytheists. A religion based upon enslaving, raping, plundering, and murdering, isn't going to be mistaken as friendly or be convicted of sharing. And obviously, if Muhammad was the first Muslim, then Adam, Noach, Abraham, Yitzhak, Jacob, Moses, Aharon, Daud, and Shalomo could not have been Muslims, even in a chronologically challenged religion. If what follows is true, Islam is false. And if what follows is not accurate, the Quran is inaccurate. Quran 6.015 Say, surely, I, myself, fear, I'm frightened and terrified, diminished and degraded. If I resisted and disobeyed Rabbi my Lord, Master, and Owner, the one who possesses me, torturous torment and punishment and important and honorable, glorious and 394 grievous day. Quran 6.016 Whoever is turned away from it that day then, lo, he had Rahim mercy on him. And that alphas are the successful attainment and escape al-mubinu being severed and separated, cut off and distinct, clear. We have been through them all, every Suratun in the Quran, and can now be assured that there is nothing redeeming, positive, useful, even moral in the ungod's recital from the depths of hell. It has been a torturous read as we have been repulsed at every turn. Quran 6.017 And then if Allahu Yamsaska touches you, striking and smiting you, with din injurious harm, annoying affliction, disease and death, forcing and compelling adversity, then no kashifa remover to pull away lahu of him illa except yuwa him. And if Yamsaska he touches you, striking and smiting you to be possessed of better, then he on everything that is willed or wished determined and decreed, all-powerful. Quran 6.018 He al-Kahiru, the oppressive subduer, harsh subjugator, and overbearing master, the irresistible, over and superior to a body his slaves who venerate and worship, submissively obeying. And he al-Hakim, the restrainer and authority in command, all-wise, al-Kabiru, the knower, all-aware. The good news is that it has become so obvious that the Quran is a worthless piece of trash, we can confidently condemn Islam while seeking to rid the world of its stench. And yet, it is astonishing that Allah/Ha/ who remained oblivious to his failings, a realization evidenced by the fact that he had to answer the following question for his Rasuli. Quran 6.019 Say, what thing Akbar greater and more grievous in telling information and presenting testimony, witness? Say, Allahu is witness between me and between you. And has been indicated, suggested, and revealed to me this Al-Quranu the recital that I may dedicate a bow of warning and admonishing you with it and whomsoever it reaches. Do you indeed witness that with Allah he God's other? Say, not I witness. Say, only he God one. And, lo, I am free of what you associate regarding 395 companions, participants, associates, friends, or sharing. The correct answer to this question is anyone and everyone besides Allahu/Hi/Ha. His testimony is inferior to idiots and well below the standard set by literate men. To compare it to the Torah, Nabi, wa Mizmor of Yahowah would be akin to considering the entire universe, all 7 dimensions, and the life in it, compared to the period at the end of this sentence. The fact is, Allahu/Hi/Ha was among the least credible in a long history of false gods. Frankly, Medusa had more going for her than the snake. But we can agree with him on one thing, no one should ever be associated with him, not Yahowah, Yehudim, or Yisrael, and not Adam, Noach, Abraham, Yitzhak, Jacob, Moses, or Daud. We couldn't produce a single written word for his Rasuli, and what he allegedly recited bears no resemblance to the Torah or Christian New Testament. And so there was nothing to recognize because they had nothing in common. The repeated myth that Muhammad was mentioned in the Torah is such an obvious lie, it's a wonder the Quran survived this false assertion. Although to do so, it routinely projected its own faults, deceiving, cheating, beguiling, and circumventing, on those with the character and courage to criticize Allah's lies. Quran 6.020 Those whom we have given them the writing, book, Jews and Christians, recognize him or it as they recognize their building, sons. Those who lost, deceiving, cheating, beguiling and circumventing soul, themselves, then they not believe. What follows is repeated some 50 times in the Quran when once would have been one occasion too many. Quran 6.021 And who an oppressive lord and subjugator, more unjust, than who cuts, splits, and cleaves to slander and fabricate, invents a lie, on, against, Allahi a lie or lie his signs. Verily, not Yufli who will be cut, slit, cracked, or fissured, successful, 396 al-Zalim the oppressive lords requiring submission and obedience. It's true, which is one of many reasons Allah fails and will be sent to Sheol. Cruel and oppressive lords fare poorly in God's estimation. Quran 6.022 And day we will gather and collect them together, gathering and collecting, then we will say to those who partnered, associated, participated, and shared, where your companions, partners, and friends, those whom you were asserting, claiming, and alleging. Fortunately, it will be Satan who will be gathered together with other religious and political leaders to be condemned and sent to Sheol on the day the devil is boasting over. And on that day, not only will Halal be correctly associated with thousands if not millions of co-conspirators and villains, but those who chose to participate with Yahowah will be sharing a glorious eternity with our Father and his Son. Quran 6.023 Then not will be them a persecution and burning affliction, plea, except that they say, and Allahi our Rabbi not we were those who associated, partnered, participated, or shared. It's nice to know that those enjoying the burning persecution of Allahi will be signing their Rabbi's praises, albeit all alone. Quran 6.024 Look how they lied on souls, themselves, and strayed from them what they were cutting, cleaving, fabricating, and slandering, inventing. When a liar calls others liars, does that infer that they were telling the truth? This is another regurgitated recital. And it, like the others, wasn't worth saying once, much less repeating. Quran 6.025 Among them who listen to you but we have placed over their hearts coverings lest they learn it and in their ears a heavy load. And if they see every sign not they will believe in it until when they come to you a twist, contending in altercation. Say 397 Those who kafir are reconciled, disbelieved, not his but tails the former. That was partly true. Much of the Quran was comprised of misappropriations of the stories told previously by Arab pagans, religious Jews, and Christians. However, they were all twisted beyond recognition. The Quran is so repulsive that the normal and natural reaction is to turn away. Quran 6.026 And they prevent, forbid, and chide away from it and they remove to be remote and turn away from it and not they die and destroy, wasting and spoiling except souls, themselves, and not they perceive. The concluding phrase, while poorly written, was intended to suggest that Allahi/Ha/ who doesn't care because his critics are only risking their souls since he does not have one. But if such subtleties were insufficient to garner the intended Islamophobia, the ungod kicked it up a notch. Quran 6.027 And if you see when they are made to stand by the fire, then they say, Oh, would that we were sent back and not we would lie and deny signs our Rabbi Lord and we would be among the believers. Quran 6.028 Nay, appearing and apparent for them what they did to conceal from accepting and admitting, before. And if they were sent back, lo, they returned to what they were forbidden from it and lo, they are liars. Allah hates people with a passion. He has no regard or sympathy for anyone. Even those, especially those, he is bribing with the tease of perpetual child virgins, he views with disdain. It is akin to the way Muslims perceive progressives as useful idiots. Quran 6.029 And they said, Not it except our life the let down and lo and not we removed, resurrected. Quran 6.030 If you see when they will be made to stand before Rabbi him their Rabbi/Lord and Master, he say, is not this the truth? They say, yes, by our Rabbi Lord. He say, so taste the 398 agonizing punishment because you were reconciled, disbelievers. Even back then and there, 1,400 years ago in Arabia, those with a functioning brain recognized that the Quranic threat to remove and resurrect bodies to torture or tempt them was neither moral nor possible. But one thing was certain, Allah was a sadist of legendary proportions. He is the poster snake for mean-spirited. He also personifies hypocrisy, falsely accusing his critics of his own perverse behaviors. Quran 6.031 Lo, verily, suffered being cheated, and diminished, incurred loss, those who lied, denied, by meeting Allahi until when came to them the run free and lost, hour, suddenly and unawares. They said, O our jaded dullness, fatigue, and stripping off, regret, over what we neglected in it while they will bear their burdens on their appearances, backs. No doubt, treated badly and annoying evil what they will bear. Occasionally, there are points of agreement. In this case, we concur, there is no doubt that Allahi/Ha/ who is annoying and that he has treated everyone badly. What follows is both untrue and a Quranic blunder. The life we have been afforded in the here and now of the material realm is not only the lone existence 99% of people will experience, it is filled with opportunities for benefit or harm. It isn't a joke, because the decisions we make in it determine our fate, whether it is eternal inclusion, separation, or elimination of our soul. And by way of contradiction, Allahu/Hi/Ha has had a conniption fit over those who have treated this life and their response to him as if a game. Quran 6.032 And not the life the low and let down except live and wallow playing around, idle jesting, and foolish drooling and a diversion to beguile, distract, and be mindless. And the revolving go round, circulating and turning, home, the go backwards, receding, and delaying, thereafter, good and pleasurable, best, for those who Yada protect and preserve or ward off and guard against, God conscious. Then not you reason. 399 When we properly identify Allah as Satan, the previous statement with its dual negations becomes particularly sinister. Turns out, the adversary was more transparent than most people realize. And that is the reason we are considering his ongoing confessions in this final Suratun. Satan has such a low regard for humanity that he continued to show his disgust by toying with all who would listen, believing that men and women were so stupid, and so easily frightened, controlled, and manipulated, that he could get away with genocide in addition to the most heinous crime ever committed, pretending to be God while insisting all must concur. Muhammad and Allah were consistently mocked because their message was imbecilic and diabolic. The ridicule continued until criticism was silenced through decapitation. Quran 6.033 Lo, we know that it grieves you, making you unhappy, what they say, and verily they not deny you but the Lord's demanding obedience the signs, verses, Allahi they deny. Okay, so some may have actually laughed their own heads off at Allahi/Ha/ whose incoherent mumbling, partially absolving Muslims of their signature crime. And verily, Muhammad was the first and last Rasuli messenger of the ungod known as Allah. There is no record of another, nor even a credible accounting of this one. And while that's germane to our evaluation, it's hard to believe that Allahi/Hu/Ha was this careless. Quran 6.034 And lo, Rasuli sent messengers Kutubat lied, falsified, and fabricated frauds from accepting or counteracting, before you, but they were patient over there what they were falsifying and fabricating. And so they were molested and abused until given our help. And no one changes, substitutes, or replaces speaking Allahi. And lo, verily, has come to you from of high, lofty, and exalted tales the sent messengers. 400 While it has been obvious from the first words the ungod and non-prophet uttered, it is nonetheless astonishing that they would admit it. Allah's messenger lied, falsified, and fabricated a fraud. Working together as one, they were patient over what they were falsifying and fabricating. But query me this, how could Allahi/Ha/ whose Rasuli be molested and abused until given our help? If not assisted by our, from the beginning, where did he get his message? And how can this apply to Muhammad when he was the one molesting little girls while abusing men? If Allahi/Ha/ who had been serious about preventing changes, substitutions, and replacements, he would not have so many contradictions that required resolving them through abrogation. Moreover, those who seek a permanent and enduring record communicate in writing. But that would have worked against Islam's demonic duo because the more we know, the worse they appear. As proof, I provide the following example. Quran 6.035 And if is hard for you their presence, retorts, and propensity to turn away, then if you are obedient to desire hypocrisy or bribery, invest in a tunnel in the ground or immunity, escaping the humiliation of Islam with a ladder into the high and lofty name in the sky so that you can give them a sign or verse. But if Allah who wanted, surely he have collected them on the guidance. So be not of the ignorant. When the ungod's words are expressed as defined in Arabic interlinears, lexicons, and dictionaries, and when they are conveyed in a manner consistent with how they are represented elsewhere in the Quran, the message is stupefying. An obedient Rasulite desires hypocrisy and bribery. He invests in tunnels to live in the ground alongside his partner in crime. He seeks immunity by escaping the humiliation of Islam. And by venturing into the sky with the aid of a ladder, he might be able to retrieve a sign or verse. But never you mind this 401 nauseating display of utter stupidity because if Allah who wanted, surely he could have collected them on the guidance. But since he didn't for reasons he didn't disclose, and since he grew tired of people mocking his pathetic audition as God, the snake burrowed deeper into the ground and offered the same advice to his ridiculous Rasuli. Quran 6.036 Only make a hole, pierce, and tear up, reply, those who listen. But the dead will remove and rouse, resurrect, them Allah who then to him they will return. I have jokingly spoken of Islam's dunderhead death cult as the zombie apocalypse, but lo, Allah who concurs. The dead will be roused and crawl out of their holes. Devoid of prophecies and a cogent message, replete with historical and scientific inaccuracies, blatant contradictions, grossly immoral edits, and genocidal content, rife with perverted plagiarism, and dripping with demonic oratory, some people were not overly impressed with these recitals. So, naturally, they asked for a reason not to discard the invective, language that is hateful, overly critical, abusive, and demeaning, Quran all out of hand with all of its vitriol. Quran 6.037 And they said, why not come down to him a sign or proof, some evidence, from his Rabbi Lord and Master? Say, lo, verily, Allah measured and determined, able, on to come down a sign or evidence, but the overwhelming quantity of them not know. I suspect that Rabbi Allah was trying to say that he was capable of providing some proof of his authorship but decided against it. So, why? Evidently, the answer was that since he had falsely claimed that he had revealed written books previously to every creepy crawly, but not to the flew who fled or bowed and bent, but including the erect and castrated nations, this proved that he had once been capable, so he isn't obliged to 402 do so again. Therefore, his final message would be comprised of the oral recitals of a sexual pervert and ruthless terrorist, nothing more. Quran 6.038 And not from a creepy crawly, animal, in the ground and not a flew or fled outstripped by it bowed and bent, a bird flies with its wings, but communities and nations of you standing erect, mutilated and castrated, like you, not we have preceded, neglected, or omitted in the writing, book, of a wish or want, anything, then to their Lord they will be gathered and collected. Quran 6.039 And those who lie, falsify, and fabricate our signs and marks, verses, deaf and dumb in suppression as lords, darknesses, whoever Allah who wants, he lets him go astray and whoever he wants, he creates him on way standing still. And if that were not enough to prove that Allah had no proof, he returned to threatening his critics. Quran 6.040 Say, have you seen if came to you Allah's torturous punishment or came to you the lost hour, is it other than Allah you call if you are right? Quran 6.041 Nay, him alone you call and he would pull away and take off what you seek and call upon him if he wills and you will neglect and forget what companions, partners, friends, and co-workers you associated. Quran 6.042 And certainly, we sent to communities, nations, or mothers from accepting, before, you, then we seized them with abasement and submissiveness, affliction and adversity, and harmful evil, disease, tribulation, and death, so that they might humiliate and abase themselves through submission. Invective, indeed. Since Allah/ha/ who seems to be averaging a seizure every other Suratun, and they were all directed at abasing and afflicting humankind, terrorizing and annihilating people, why would anyone be sufficiently foolish to believe that this demonic beast represents God? Also curious, why is Allah offering so many reasons to hate him, especially when this next line reads like a confession? 403 Quran 6.043 Then why not when came to them our torturous punishment, humiliate and abase themselves in submission? But became hard and pitiless their hearts adorned with the splendor and stature indeed for them the adversary, Satan rather than what they were doing. Since Allah is so insistent that everyone has been given a reminder, including this Quran, why isn't there a record of something similar? With the millions of ancient texts, carvings, and manuscripts, why is there no mention of Allah or Islam anywhere to be found? Quran 6.044 So when they forgot and neglected what they were reminded of it, we opened on them gates everything desired until when they were exalting in what they were given, we seized them suddenly and unaware, and they gave up hope, were broken, and confounded by Iblis. That was surprisingly demonic, even for Satan. But alas, the ungod and non-prophet have returned to dishing up word salads. Quran 6.045 So was cut off, severed, and wiped out the remnant of the upright who subjugate, deprive, and oppress as lords. And praises eulogizing and commending the vehement burning of Allahi, Rabbi the marked and known, worlds. This contains rather odd phrasing. Quran 6.046 Say, have you seen if Allah who took away your hearing and your eyes, and sealed on your hearts, who ilahan God other than Allahi to give to you with it? See how we turn away and divert, explain, the signs and proofs and yet they turn away. So, how would they see without eyes or live to answer the question after the heart surgery? Clearly, he was the weirdest wannabe God ever, and the most sadistic and demonic. Quran 6.047 Say, have you seen if comes to you punishment Allahi suddenly and unawares or openly and apparent in public, will be destroyed and die, wasted and spoiled, except the upright lords and suppressors. 404 Methinks Allahi/ha/ who intended to say the opposite but got caught up in all of the excitement of torturing people privately and publicly, wasting entire nations, such that he messed up the phrasing. But, to be fair, he was posing an impossible hypothetical with options and either a negation or exception, which was beyond his skill set. Further, he remains confused over the meanings of calm upright and Zalem oppressive lords. That communication failure was followed by a triple negation with an exception. Quran 6.048 And not we send the sent except bearer of glad tidings and warners so who believed and right, then no fear or terror upon them and not they will express pain, moan, or mourn. With all of the Muslim women moaning and grieving around the blogosphere, pretending to be victims as opposed to perpetrators, someone didn't get the memo. Quran 6.049 And those who lied in our signs and verses, will touch them, smiting, afflicting, and befalling them, the torturous punishment for what they did being disobedient. Since only two individuals are credited with providing these verses, the liars who lied throughout them must be Allah and Muhammad. Therefore, they are going to self-flagellate in a torturous manner for their disobedience. If nothing else, it ought to be entertaining. In this next pronouncement, the admitted liars claim that they know nothing and are broke. So, does that mean they are super rich and honest? Quran 6.050 Say, not I say to you with me repository store, treasures, Allahi and not I know beyond what can be seen, and not I say to you that I an angel. Not I follow except what indicated to me. Say, can be worthy or equivalent the swerving and dusty, ignorant and blind and the eyes perceptive. Then not will you ponder. Obviously, Allah was an aficionado of all forms of negativity, but even for him, 5 nots and an except in 405 a single verse was pushing negation beyond normal limits. So it begs the question, what are they offering? If what is conveyed in this Quran is the sum total of their proposal, it's a clunker. And since he said it, let's be honest and admit that the previous comparison was insulting. Quran 6.051 and warn with it those who fear that they will be gathered to their Lord. Not for them of other than him any wali to be close, to turn, befriend, ally, or protect and not make even that which was odd, adjoin a pair, intercessor, so that they may protect, ward off, and guard. Words to live by, when one's Lord and Master is Satan, it's good to ward off and be on guard. If he is your only friend, you have none. Why do you suppose the Lord proposed the following with 3 negations? Quran 6.052 and not drive away, expelling, and banishing, those who call their Lord and Master in the dawn twilight, seeking his face. Not on you of their opinion of a matter or affair and not from your account, consideration, imagination, or opinion on them of any matter or affair wanted. So where you drive them away and banish them, pursuing and assaulting them, then you would be a cruel Lord and oppressive tyrant. When we consider the number of people Muhammad drove out of their homes, expelled from their land, and banished, most all of whom would have referred to their God as a Lord, it is apparent that Allah's Rasuli is properly typecast as a cruel Lord and oppressive tyrant. I think what follows is Allah's version of sweet talk. He's attempting to be charming. Quran 6.053 and thus we try to persecute and burn, distressing, afflicting, and slaughtering some of them with others that they say, are these have conferred or bestowed a benefit as if manna, Allah who upon them from among us. Is not Allah who knowing those giving thanks? And that adventure in persecution and other benefits, 406 including burning the manna while offering thanks leads to another episode of the Lord scribbling on himself before he covers it over and hides. Quran 6.054 and when come to you those who believe in our signs then say, peace upon you, wrote and dictated it your Lord upon himself, Al-Rahman, that he who does among you evil, treating badly and viciously, ignorant and foolish, then returns from after it aloof and alienated, and right, then lo, he covers over and hides, oft forgiving, Rahim favored and pardoned, most merciful. Quran 6.055 and thus we separated and divided, judged and decided, explained, the signs, verses, so that becomes apparent way the criminals. If that is the explanation, then I'm glad I'm not teaching in an Islamic school. Although, that's a pretty simple curriculum, submit and obey, bow and pay, steal and slaughter, and, of course, hate the Jews. One would think that the Quran would have dispensed with the pretense of, say, and other stilted narratives. If God's communication skills are so deplorable that his lone Rasuli must be told what to say after a score of years and scores of surahs, it's long past time to either replace the God or his messenger. Nonetheless, the religion for dummies continues with Quran 6.056 say, lo, I am prevented and forbidden that I worship or obey those whom you call from except Allah. Say, not I follow your fallen desires. Certainly, I would go astray then and not I from the guided. Quran 6.057 say, lo, I am between separating and severing, clear proof, from Rabbi while you lie with it. Not I have what you want to hurry of it. Not the authority or command except for I Allah. He imparts the suitable requirements and he good divider and separator, decider. Beyond the deplorable substandard oratory, the message is inconsistent, contradictory, and senseless. For example, since Allah, Allat, Manet, and Al-Azza were gods venerated by the Quraysh, why was Muhammad 407 allowed to extol them in the Quran? If he was prohibited from following their desires, why did he accept the idolatrous indulgence and covet the Kaiba? How could cravings be any more depraved than those Muhammad pursued and Allah endorsed? When has the Quran been clear, and if it is to be seen as separated and distinct, why does it insist that it confirms the Torah? If the Quraysh wanted something in a hurry, and it was so important that it was mentioned in the Quran, what was it? Why bother with a messenger if he has no authority? Why say, obey the messenger under such circumstances? Quran 6.058 say, if that with me what you seek to hasten of it, surely would have been decided and carried out the matter between me and between you. And Allahu A'lamu knows of zalim cruelty and subjugation. We have 2 options pursuant to Wallahu A'lamu bil zalimina and Allahu knows of cruelty and subjugation. The first is to accept the likelihood that Satan continues to misuse zalim, since it is so indicative of the devil and Islam, in that it speaks of a cruel lord, subjugating tyrant, and unjust oppressor. It is misappropriated as wrong, wrongdoer, dark, or darkness throughout the Quran to absolve the apparent hypocrisy. But these connotations are distant extrapolations of zalim's meaning. The second option is to see Satan playing Muslims for fools. Here, for example, he is acknowledging that cruelty and subjugation are his forte. And while that is obviously and undeniably true based upon all we have read, these are not skill sets we'd expect to find on a God's resume. In the diatribe that follows, the ungod is stating that he is the universal know-it-all. But think of the absurdity and futility of these things, ponder why anyone would say them or believe them, and then contemplate why such minutiae would be recorded in a book, when the Quran, itself, was not written. 408 Quran 6.059 and with him to open, keys, the absent and hidden. No knows them except him. And he knows what in the pious, land, and in the slit, sea. And not falls from any leaf but he knows it. And not a pleasure or pimples, grain, cruel and subjugating, darkness, the ground and not ripe, moist, and not withered, dry, but in a writing, book, between separated and severed, clear. It bears repeating, there should be some minimum standard set which must be exceeded for the egomaniacal auditioning for the role of God. This is an embarrassment, disqualifying Allah while discrediting Muslims. And let's not pretend that this was symbolic oratory, since the ungod has the finesse of a spitting cobra and a vocabulary to match. The wannabe God who did nothing wants to be credited with doing everything. Quran 6.060 And he the one who takes your death, soul, by the night, and he knows who you wounded, vilified, and reviled, committed, in the repulsive flow while browbeating, day. Then he rouses and removes, raises, you therein so that is finished the ordained, fulfilled, assigned and appointed, term, high and lofty name, sky, and heaven, specified. Then to him you will be returned. Then he will be an exalted prophet, informing you about what you did. When we began our intrepid journey through the hell of the Surah and Sunnah, Quran and Hadith, we were aware that Muhammad was despicable, a dim-witted sadist, psychopath, and pervert, but I do not think anyone could have imagined finding a god to match. But this continues to be horrific, by a wide margin the worst narrative ever ascribed to a god. To realize that 2 billion people believe this dark and demented, dim-witted and deadly, even damning diatribe, to the point that they submit to, obey, and worship this deplorable devil, speaks poorly of mankind's depraved and fallen state. And then to realize that another billion progressives support them is inexplicable. There is 409 no longer any hope for either. Keeping in mind that all of the words added within the parentheticals, soul, committed, day, raises, fulfilled, term, and specified, were provided to make sense of the Lord's mutterings, what little remains is deplorable. We are left with the same 2 options, both of which negate the Quran. Either Allah was toying with Muslims or he's as dumb as the stone representing him. The term used to astutely describe what we have been reading is aphasia, which is defined as impairment of the mental capacity to comprehend or deploy words in a correct and coherent way. Just think for a moment about the parting proclamation, one repeated incessantly throughout these Suratun. The ungod who cannot remember what he said from one statement to the next, and therefore constantly repeats and contradicts himself, nonetheless remembers and will report everything everyone else has done. And even when we step aside from the disconnect from reality, what's the purpose? The last thing anyone needs is to be reminded of is what they have done. If you want to be of benefit, share something meaningful that I may have missed along the way. As we grow older and our bodies naturally degrade, some will ask, if you could turn back the clock and be 20 or 30 again, would you? No. Been there, done that. I want to use my time to go beyond where I've been, not retreat to where I once was. In his next blunder, Allah/who/ha admits that I was correct in saying that the ungod and religion embody the negative connotations of Zalim, subjugating and oppressing as a lord and tyrant. And by altering the meaning to irresistible, Muslims demonstrate that they will say and do anything to keep their God from appearing like Satan. For 10 Quran 6.061 And he al-Kahiru, the oppressor and subjugator, the lord and master who subdues, constrains, and abuses, the irresistible, Faka superior to, overcoming, and surpassing, while milking, over, his slaves. And he Rasulu sends over you guards until when comes any one of you al-Mata the cause of death paid in full. Our Rasulu sent messengers and they neglect or remiss, never falling short. This is the antithesis of the first statement Yahowah etched in stone and offered to Moses. In it, he explained, I am Yahowah, your God, who, for the benefit of the relationship, brought you out and liberated you from the realm of the crucibles of oppression, out of the house of slavery. In contrast, and as Satan, the Lord of Islam is al-Kahiru, the oppressor and subjugator, the Lord and master who subdues, constrains, and abuses his slaves. Allah is a cruel and subjugating Lord who enslaves those under his spell has been reconfirmed by his own admission. There is more that can be gleaned from this statement, since Allah/who/ha used a variation of Rasuli messenger twice, once to say that they serve as guards to control his slaves, and the other to say that they cause death, a pursuit in which they are paid in full and never neglect. This confession provides a frame for Muhammad's portrait while depicting his legacy. Having already endured 3,500 pages of Sunnah and Suratun examinations and refutations, I was on the verge of foregoing this final Quranic assessment. But that resolute voice which has inspired me these many years and asked me to finish the job, leaving no stone unturned. As usual, he was right, and we are the beneficiaries, having found the perfect summation of the Quran, Islam, Allah, and Muhammad in the 6th surah. The only context in which men and women could be sent back to Allahi would require a reenactment and mass extrapolation of what occurred in the garden just shy of 6,000 years ago. The snake wants another opportunity to 411 misappropriate and misconstrue Yahowah's instructions to beguile the descendants of Adam and Chawwa. And while Islam and the Quran serve as proof that he would prevail with most people given the chance to mislead them, Allah's grand desires are destined to fail. Quran 6.062 Then, they are sent back to Allahi, the one who turns, the guard, the protector, the suitable and required, the true. No doubt Lahu for him the authority and command, the dominance and control, judgment. And he is quick, prompt, and sudden in hastening the assessing and account, reckoning. Satan seeks dominance. The means to his madness is by controlling men. He has, however, been anything but prompt in hastening his desired outcome. Just as the previous statement stands in abject conflict with reality, the following is the inverse of it. As he has just admitted, Allahi is the cruel subjugator and oppressor. And in Quranic fashion, one statement is in conflict with the next. Quran 6.063 Say, who saves you from zulm, cruelty in lords, subjugation and being oppressed, darknesses, and al-Bari the good, kind, affectionate and honest, and al-Bari the cut, slit, and see. Utadinahu Tadarun call him, humbly, seeking submissive humiliation and abasement Hufyatan while unaware, secretly suppressed, unenlightened, and dim-witted, hidden. If he saves us from this, surely we will be from al-Shakarina the thankful who offer praises. Once again we see Satan taunting his victims. After telling them that he will save them from cruel oppression and preclude kindness and affection, he says that the means to this is through submissive humiliation and abasement. And all the while, he seeks to prevail by keeping Muslims who submit to him dim-witted and unaware. Quran 6.064 say, Allah who saves you from it and from every grief, distress, and affliction, yet tushrikuna you associate and share, are polytheists associating partners with Allah. For 12 The reason Allah is found constantly complaining that he is associated with others is because he stole their material and then degraded and perverted it. By doing so, comparisons became inevitable. But when this is done, guess who never measures up, especially when his recitals are translated accurately? Quran 6.065 say, he measured and able on to yabatha remove, send, raise, appoint, or resurrect upon you castigating punishment and tormenting torture out of surpassing and overwhelming superiority, above, or out of inferiority below your feet, or yalbasakam to confuse and confound you, cloaked and concealed from you through intermixing and by commingling what has been published and known, conforming and distinct, sex, and make taste you being bitten, annoyed, and molested as if by gnats and mosquitoes, some of you, evil adversity, feigned prowess, distressful impoverishment, punishing affliction, and miserable suffering, violent battle, imposed to be difficult and divisive, essentially impossible, while annoying and molesting others. See how Nazarifu we turn away and avert, redirecting, explain, al-Yadi the signs and message, the miraculous proof and verses that perhaps there is the possibility that they might understand. When a wannabe god's most prevalent theme is torturous punishment in an attempt to prove his superiority, there is a significant likelihood that he is not what he claims. And while we can all concur that Allah/Ha/ who is a master of confusion and that his true nature has been cloaked through the intermixing and commingling of truth and lies, these things are neither godly nor good. And as a result, mankind has been bitten by this snake and molested by this evil adversary who has feigned his prowess by repeatedly threatening to impose miserable suffering upon all who do not capitulate. So, see how Satan misdirects and avoids the truth. And when someone comes along as I have done to expose and condemn Muhammad and Allah using their own words, there is yet another effective tactic to dissuade 413 a rational attack, utter gibberish. Quran 6.066 But lied, falsified, and deceived it you standing firm and upright, your people, and it the more suitable and deserving, the required reality, and the more entitled and better truth. Say, Lastu, I am, not by Wakelin trustworthy, alaikum over you. That word salad was followed by the opportunity to be disinherited and bereaved. Quran 6.067 Lakuli for all who are disinherited and bereaved of parents and children the lofty, high, and exalted prophet of news and information to remain quiet and steadfast, a fixed time. So soon, you will know. For those who remain quiet, who are unwilling to stand up against this evil on behalf of God's chosen, there will be a consequence. Soon, all who survive will know. The only way for the Quran and Allah to prevent being exposed and condemned is to thwart scrutiny. So, Muslims are told to avoid those who criticize their religion. Quran 6.068 And when you see those who wade or plunge, passing through, engaging in false talk or indulging in vain conversation, about our signs, proofs, and verses, then avoid and turn away from them until they plunge in erring and improperly pass through, engage or indulge, in something novel, recent, original, and new, talk, other or not it altered and changed, particularly corrupted and foul. And if the al-Shaitanu the adversary, Satan, causes you to forget, then not sit or remain behind distant and remote, after, the remembering with the standing upright and firm, the oppressive lords and cruel tyrants. Quran 6.069 And not on those who fearfully ward off and guard against their thinking and analysis regarding any matter but remember so that they may be on guard and afraid. If we are to assume that Allah/Ha/ who isn't as dumb as he appears in the Quran, then confused commentary must be part and parcel of his ruse. And this would be especially 414 so when he speaks of differentiating his Satan the adversary title from that of his alter ego, Allah in the Quran. With Satan, submission is serious business. Obedience, like religion, cannot be taken lightly. Quran 6.070 And leave those who take their obedience, submissiveness, and religious worship as a playful pastime, a sport or joke, as a stupid drooling fool, and as a distracting diversion for amusement, and deceived, deluded, and beguiled them the life the near and down low. But remember or remind with it lest a soul is prevented or withheld, destroyed, from what it gained and acquired, earned, not for it from besides Allah he turning away, ally or protector, and not make even, part of something adjoined, intercessor. And if it offers to pay, a ransom, every deal and payment not will be taken from it. Those ones who prevent or prohibit for what they acquired and gained, earned, for them a drink of boiling and scalding and an insufferable and painful punishment because they were reconciled. As the most demonically fixated on painful punishments, Allah is anything but a savior. And it is Muslims who are the most deluded among the religious. It is a religion for dummies and malcontents. As an interesting insight, Allah would have Muslims believe that the only way to be assured of entry into his brothel is by sacrificing one's wealth and life by killing for his cause. However, should a person offer his money to save his soul apart from sacrificing it and slaughtering others, the ransom is rejected. Therefore, Islam is a death cult, theirs and ours. With all evidence to the contrary, Allah continues to claim that he, not Yahowah, was the creator. And in Satan's case, it isn't to facilitate a loving familial relationship but, instead, to assert his authority in an attempt to control humankind. Quran 6.073 He who measured in proportions, created, the high and lofty names, heavens, and the rotation of herbs 415, ground, as suitable and required, in truth, and day he says, be, and it is, his speaking the suitable requirement, truth. And lahu for him the day of command and control, power, authority, and being king will be blown in the shape, trumpet. Marks and knows the absent and concealed the testimony. He the authority in command, all-wise, the possessor of information, all-aware. Fortunately, this is not true or else every woman would be wearing a hijab and all men would be murderous terrorists. Allah's days are numbered, and his fate is grim. Lacking creativity, Islam's wannabe God resorts to old tricks, misappropriating and misconstruing God's testimony. Although, he does so poorly without regard for historical or textual accuracy, or even a sensible transition. Quran 6.074 And when said Ibrahimu, Abraham, to Azar, his father, do you take the offensive and odiferous idols as Ilaha gods? Lo, I see you and you're standing upright and firm, people, between, in manifest or clear, error. Abraham's father was named Terach, not Azar. And they never discussed idols or gods. It was in the Talmud where Abraham was reduced to such nonsense, demonstrating that Jews inspired this portion of the Quran. Quran 6.075 And that we showed Ibrahim rule of command and control, the kingdom, the high and lofty names, the heavens, and the ground so that he might be among the certain. Proving otherwise, Allah revealed that revisionist Ibrahim was a pagan idolater with a proclivity for demonic lords. In a recitation filled with regurgitated paganism, this may be the snake's failing achievement. Quran 6.076 So when Jannah demonically veiled and devilishly concealed on him the night, he saw a star as something shining and glistening. He said, This Rabbi my Lord. But when it was absent and concealed, set, he said, Not I love the absent and concealed, the setting. Quran 6.077 When he saw the white moon flow and 416 spreading, rising, he said, This Rabbi my Lord. But when it was absent and concealed, set, he said, If not guides me Rabbi my Lord, verily I will be among the upright and firmly standing, people, who erred and strayed. Quran 6.078 When he saw the bright and glorious sun flowing and spreading, rising, he said, This Rabbi my Lord. This Akbar greater, bigger, older, and better, superior, illustrious, and momentous, albeit, arrogant. But when it was absent and concealed, set, he said, O my upright and firmly standing, people, lo. I am free, irresponsible, and immune from what you share, associating as friends and partners. Quran 6.079 Lo, I have turned my face to one who created by breaking and splitting the lofty name of the heavens and earth, as, a Hanif one who leans to one side, true monotheist, and not I of the companions and partners who share as friends, polytheists. In the vast annals of human stupidity, one might search but will not find dumber than this. While childishly spoken, it was overtly self-incriminating. The night is Jannah demonic, devilishly concealed. During this time of darkness, the stars of Islam's show are bright and shiny objects, including Allah's logo, the moon, and the glorious sun. They are all ascending lords worthy of veneration according to revisionist Ibrahim, Islam's founding father. And of this, he is certain, he does not like it when false gods are absent and concealed, set aside as was the case with Allah. But when it comes to the bright and shining objects men have worshipped, the sun, like Allah, is Akbar better, bigger, greater, and more illustrious than the rest. Surely, the sun is Islam's Rabbi Lord. As is typical among crazy makers, Islamic Ibrahim's self-assessment was in direct conflict with his oratory and experience. That is to say, he was either confused or dishonest. And while those are common traits among people, it's a death blow to Islam in this context. Even the Hanif Association was incriminating because it was their poetry, both in style and substance, that was 417 used to create the first half of the Quran. The Hanif were Arab converts to Judaism among the Sabaeans in today's Yemen. If someone was nefariously trying to insert something into the Quran to discredit Allah and Islam, this is what they would have written. And after replacement Abraham spoke and acted like a run-of-the-mill polytheist, thereby discrediting himself and his testimony, while mimicking the Hanif oratorical style, he was made to say. Quran 6.080 And targeting him, aiming to repair and venerate him, argued with him, his firmly standing and upright, people. He said, Do you target me, aiming to repair me to venerate me, dispute with me, with Allahi? And certainly, indeed, he has directed me. So not I fear, terrified of being diminished or slaughtered, what you associate and share with him unless that thing Rabbi my Lord wants or wills. Vast capacity, abundant wealth and ample means, all-encompassing, Rabbi my Lord everything knowing. Then will not you remember, take heed? This remedial narrative is so far removed and out of context with the life of the Torah's Abraham, it would be laughable if Muslims weren't suicidal slaughterers. No one targeted, aimed to repair, venerated, or argued with actual Abram. He, his wife, Sarai, his nephew, Lot, and father, Terach, left Ur of the Chaldeans, Sumer/Babylon, quietly. The gods and goddesses worshipped there in the 21st century BCE were way out of Allah's league, as were the people living there. Their nation was vastly better educated, better constructed, more inventive, literate, and civilized than Allah's Kaabaville 2,700 years later. Sumer was, by a wide margin, the most sophisticated place on the planet at the time, making it way too big a sandbox for pretend Abe to play the enlightened inhabitants of Ur for fools. And since they 418 were the first literate civilization in human history and left a written legacy of their religion and gods, we have corroboration beyond the Torah that the Quran is unequivocally wrong because the gods and goddesses of Sumer were not crude rock idols, as was the case with Allah and the Kaaba. They served as manifestations of the sky, water, and earth. As I shared previously, Namu was the goddess of primeval waters. She bore Ki, representing the earth, and An, the sky. They conceived a son named Enlil, who, as the god of wind and storm, claimed the earth as his own. Like Allah, he was opposed to sharing. And like Allah, he claimed to have conceived humans. In their religion, heaven was reserved for gods, which may be why there is an Islamic garden apart from Allah's throne in Islamic heaven. The mortal souls of humans, good or bad, were sent to Kur, which was a cold, dark, dry, and foodless cavern buried in the earth where the dearly departed were fed dust. Moving down the pantheon of Enki-controlled culture, Ninhursag fertility, Utu was the deity of the sun and justice, and Nana was the moon god. There wasn't an Allahu/Ha/Hi or rabbi among them. Further, Sumerian temples put Allah's rock house to shame as they were tall and stately ziggurats, pyramidal monuments with sanctuaries at their summits. As mentioned previously, when this same aberration of pretend Abraham was foisted in the 26th Suratun, the most famous religious adventure emerging from ancient Sumer was the Epic of Gilgamesh. It was pressed into antiquity using cuneiform and has, therefore, been preserved on clay tablets. There were also a collection of religious poems and songs preserved by these impressions memorialized 28 centuries before the first written copy of the Quran. In them, we learn that they ennobled priests and deified kings. There were no Rasulis nor prophets. They were the first to promote the notion of an afterlife, coining the hereafter, 419 nomenclature used throughout the Quran. They also believed that the gardens on the earth floated on subterranean seas, similar to the Quranic gardens underneath which the rivers flow. And as is the case with the Quran, hell had gates and a gatekeeper. Their demons were called Gala, and they, like Allah's angels, were tasked with dragging deceased souls to hell. This reinforces the realization Allahu/Hi/Ha was a plagiaristic scavenger. It was at this time, circa 2000 BCE, when Abram left Ur, that the Sumerian gods and goddesses became anthropomorphic and were projected interacting with and talking to priests and kings. Beyond all of this, the people had no say in their religion or gods, rendering Quranic Ibrahim's narrative foolish in the extreme. Nonetheless, when it came to lying, especially when projecting the foibles of Kaabaville on everyone, Allah didn't know when to quit. Quran 6.081 And how should I fear, being terrified of being diminished what companions and partners share, and friends and co-workers you associate, while not you fear that you have shared and partnered with, even befriended and worked with Allahi what not he sent down for it to you to overcome any authority. So which the separate and distinct, two parties, more suitable to safety believe if you know? The Sumerians believed that the gods had no interest in common people. They neither associated with them nor feared them. And since Allahi wasn't among them, Islam's snake is lying through his forked tongue. Quran 6.082 Those who believed and lam yalbasu did not confound by intermixing nor confuse by commingling, mix, with zulm and cruel oppression and subjugation, with wrong, those for them the feeling safe and believing secure, and they the directed. Satan is defined by and forever inseparable from Babel commingling to confuse, intermixing to confound, as a lord in association with Babylon and the Bible. So in this 420 statement, Allah accused the naysayers of doing as he has done throughout the Quran. And rest assured, no matter if addressing Muslims, progressives, Christians, or Jews, in proximity to a sadistic psychopath, no one is safe. Evidently, pretend Abraham wasn't the only nincompoop in this tragic tale of Babel dished up from Babylon. Allah was no brighter, even resplendent as the moon. Quran 6.083 And this hujjatuna our intended target for replacement theology, argument. We gave it Abraham on his standing upright and firm, people. We raise and extol to walk, destroying by degrees, ranks, whom we want. Lo, Rabbaka your Lord restrains by commanding and controlling, all-wise, knowing. Quran 6.084 And we gave Lahu to him Ishaqa, Isaac, and Yaquba, Jacob, all we guided. And Nuhan, Noah, we guided from accepting, receiving, before, and of Yada Yahowah his scattered and strewn ants and grubs, descendants, Dawuds, David, and Suleimana, Solomon, Ayyuba, Job, Yusufa, Joseph, Musa, Moses, and Haruna, Aaron. And thus do we pay the good doers. We should expect more, even from a reptilian overlord with a tainted past. Hujjatuna does not mean argument, but, instead, speaks of targeting Abraham in pursuit of replacement theology, which, while true, means that Allah's version of the story is false. It may seem like a broken record, but Qum and its derivatives speak of standing, being upright, and firm. It does not mean people. It is likely that Allah meant to say that he assigns ranks to people, and that his revisionist aid was esteemed. But, other than Daud, men are without rank with God, no matter how commanding and controlling Satan wants to perceive himself. Yitzhak was a gift, provided by Yahowah, not Allahi/Hu/Ha. Yaakov was Yitzhak's second born and, thus, not given to Abraham, his paternal grandfather. Moreover, for 21 since Islam is based upon Ishmael, by excluding him, Allah devalued his religion. Noach could not have been given to Abraham since he was born almost 1,000 years earlier. Further, not only doesn't Yada Yahowah mean his descendants, the chronologically challenged Lord of Islam must have been unaware that Noach preceded Abraham by many centuries. Stupid is as stupid says. Daud is Yahowah's firstborn son, his chosen Messiah and king. He is also our savior because he fulfilled Pesach, Matzah, and Bikurim in year 4000 Ya in 33 CE. He would strangle this snake's neck for putting him on this list. Daud's son was named Shalomo, he was chosen by Yahowah for the role of king, and more importantly, to build the home for Yahowah's covenant family, more commonly known as the first temple, on the site on Mount Moriah in Jerusalem acquired by Daud. All of these things are incompatible with Allah, Arabs, and the Quran. It only gets worse from there. Had there actually been someone named Job, nothing is known of his life, when or where he lived, although he was not a descendant of Abraham and chronologically, would not have come after Shalomo. And because the book bearing his name is spurious, in that it fails Yahowah's test for authenticity, he does not belong. Yosef was Jacob's son, and he became famous for what he accomplished in Mitzrayim, Egypt, recorded in the Torah and confirmed archaeologically 2,500 years before the invention of Allah. And as for Moses, as a result of the Torah, no one is more convincingly associated with Yahowah. To believe that Allah had a relationship with him requires the religious to be as ignorant as their God. And, while it is hard to 422 believe, dumb becomes dumber. Quran 6.085 And Zechariah, and Yahya, John, and Isa, Jesus, and Ilyasa, Elijah, all of the right. Quran 6.086 and Ismaila, Ishmael, and Al-Yasa'e, Elisha, and Yunusa, Jonah, and Lutan, Lot. And we bestowed surpassing bounty, preferred, over the known worlds. The first three names on this ongoing list never existed. They are mythological figures, known to us only through the replacement theology of the Christian New Testament. The first and second names, Zachariah and Yehia, were misspellings pilfered from the first chapter of the Gospel of Luke, which was a hearsay account scribed by Paul's propagandist. So, while these fabled individuals do not belong with the likes of Noach, Abraham, Yitzchak, Jacob, Moses, Aharon, Daud, and Shalomo, by including Zachariah/Zachariah/remember Yah and Yehia/Yahowah is merciful, Satan demonstrated that Allah was not God because both convey Yahuwah's name. Had Allah acknowledged what I have learned, that Jesus Christ never existed, he would have lost credibility with the religious while gaining it with informed and rational individuals. A thorough examination of the available evidence demonstrates that the mythology behind Isu Christus Jesus Christ emerged in the vacuum created by religious Jews. Even with a tremendous population of prophecies portraying Daud's fulfillment of Pesach, Matzah, and Bikurim in year 4000 Yah, Jews managed to miss everything associated with the three most important events in human history. And because they denied the return of the Son of God and Messiah, a group of charlatans, specifically Peter, Paul, Luke, Mark, Timothy, and later, an impostor named Matthew, created a new religion by superimposing a misnomer upon the name, titles, accolades, prophecies, and sacrifices of Daud. Clueless regarding the timing of their lives, Al-423-Lahi/Hu/Ha places a grotesquely inaccurate spelling of Elia next. As Yahowah's most sarcastic spokesman and likely the most opposed to religion, particularly those venerating a lord through a false prophet, he was named after the God he served. Yada Yahowah is God. It was insane for Allah to claim a relationship with this exceptional man. And to the false god's chagrin, Yah will be instrumental as one of the final witnesses in condemning Allah, Islam, and Muslims. He will not be humored by his inclusion in this bogus list. While Elisha, my God delivers and saves, followed Yah, and therefore, should have come after him in the Quranic list but long before the mentions of the Christian myths. Stranger still, Allah's remedial accounting was interrupted by the belated addition of Ishmael, who would have preceded Isaac had the list been chronological. Even then, since Ishmael was excluded from the covenant and banished from Yahowah's family, by claiming him, Allah is again demonstrating that he cannot be trusted. Moving through the names, the next one, Yunusa, who Muslims insist was Yana Jonah, Allah can keep. Even if he existed, he was not a prophet. And as for Lot, he was not only wrong most of the time, since he was not a descendant of Abram, he was misplaced on this list. Moreover, only 3 of these men were wealthy, so there was no bestowing of surpassing bounty on most of them. If Allah was nothing more than an idiot auditioning for the role of God, we could laugh this off and move on with our lives. But Satan is too nefarious for that because he has beguiled billions into terrorizing Yahowah's people while coveting their land. So, the best we can do is expose the utter stupidity of the Quran to discourage Muslims from slaughtering for Satan. Quran 6.087 And from their fathers and their scattered, strewn, and sprinkled, descendants, and their brothers, we collected, chose, them, and we guided them to a way standing still 424, level. Quran 6.088 That direct Allahi. He guides with it who he wants of his slaves. But if they associated, shared, worked together, or were friendly, certainly vain, worthless, and wasted for them what they were doing. The Quran continues to hold its own as a piece of literary trash. Even when Allah isn't slaughtering and torturing, his message remains remedial. Worse, he is out of touch with reality. Moses wrote a scroll, not a book, and while it was inspired by Yahowah, it was not given to him. It is filled with instructions, not commandments. And there are Yahowah's prophets and false prophets, but not high and lofty exalted prophets. Quran 6.089 Those ones whom we gave them the writing, book, and the command and control, judgment or wisdom, and the high and lofty, exalted prophethood. But if they are reconciled, disbelieve, in it, these then indeed we have entrusted it standing still, a people, who are not therein with reconciliation, disbelievers. Allahu/Ha/High was not mentioned in the Torah because he had nothing to do with it. And this statement of fact is confirmed many hundreds of thousands of times over through extant manuscripts predating the Quran. Quran 6.090 These ones whom Allahu has directed so of their direction you follow. Say, not I ask you for a payment. Not it but a reminder for the known worlds. The Quran was so pathetic that rather than compensating Muhammad for reciting it, Allah's Rasuli had to bribe pagan Arabs to accept it, using stolen booty. Further, since nothing has ever been as poorly communicated or immoral as the Quran, it could not have been a reminder. Those who heard these suratans as they drooled off of the demented psychopath's lips, immediately recognized that the Rabbi Allahi/Ha/ who didn't measure up and that he was unsuitable for the role of God. Further, when they 425 compared the wannabe God's constant bragging to be all-powerful and all-knowing, the best of protectors and punishers, even the lone operator and creator, with the realization that his presence was never seen or felt, their appraisal was decidedly negative. Quran 6.091 And not they measure or determine, appraise, Allah has suitable, true, measure, appraisal, when they said, not come down Allahu on basharan animal or flesh, human being, of wanting a thing or matter. Say, who sent down the writing, book, which cometh Musa, a fire and a guidance for the swing halted and tossed, the mankind. You make it to take aim and shoot, parchments or paper sheets. You tubdunaha appearing or imitating, translated variously throughout the Quran as, it Bedouin life, it living in desert, it enslaved and appeared apparent, it made clear and disclosed, it revealed and displayed, it even visited and you hide, making imperceptible and unapparent most. And you were taught what not knew you and not your fathers. Say, Allahu. Then leave them in their waiting and walking, discourse, playing, sporting, gaming, and joking. Say, no one associated with Allah/Ha/ who sent down a writing book, so why lie and claim otherwise? Why believe in a wannabe God with a dysfunctional vocabulary? And considering the dark, deadly, and demonic nature of the Quran, there is no better response than sarcasm and humor. Had the snake not wanted to be scoffed at, he should have recited something better than this verbal diarrhea. Quran 6.092 And this a writing, book. We have sent it down, revealed it, lying and kneeling down, blessed, truthful and right, confirming which between his hands so that you may vow to warn unlettered community, mother, or nation of entertaining guests, towns or cities, and who around it, and those who believe in the going backwards, retreating, receding, and deferred, hereafter. They believe in it and they over their salat prostration prayer performance guard and protect. If prayer worked, I'd pray for Islam to self-immolate. For 26 this continues to be inaccurate, repetitive, and pathetic, and that is being unduly generous. Quran 6.093 And who cruel and subjugating Lord, more unjust, than who cut slander or splits fabrications, invents, on Allahi a lie, or said, it has been indicated and revealed to me, while not it was suggested or inspired to him wanting a matter and who said, I will descend, bringing down, reveal, standing erect, the likes, what Allah who brought down. And if you could see when al-Zalimuna the cruel and oppressive lords, the polytheists and wrongdoers, in abundant ignorance and unintelligent bewilderment, agonies, the death, while the angels stretching out their hands, evict and expulse, deliver, your souls. Day you rendered and pay, recompensed, humiliating and despicable punishment of torturous torment because you had said against Allahi the bringing of an alteration and change, other than, the suitable and deserving requirement, truth. And you were toward his ayat proofs and signs, verses, hard, disputing as superior, being arrogant. It is the attack of the killer angels, part 13, followed by the Lord of humiliating punishments, part 213, and then a replay of the never-ending argument, part 113. So, who said that the Quran was inconsistent? Q. The lone tormentor. Quran 6.094 And certainly, you have come unto us alone, separated and isolated, as we measured, created, you to return, first, pass, time. You have left what we sustained by managing you hidden and concealed while pretending behind you, your backs. And not we see with you your making even, or intercessors, those whom you claimed that they in your sharing as friends and partners. Lo, verily, cutting, severing, disuniting, and separating between you and has strayed, erring from you what you were claiming. It has to be frightening living inside this snake's head. Allah is a sadistic psychopath. It provides a new perspective on Islamophobia. Quran 6.095 Lo. Verily, Allah divisive, splitting the 427 beloved by intent and design, the scheme's purpose, the seed and the date stone. He brings forth the living from the dead and brings forth the dead from the living. This Allahu. So how are you changed and deceived, lying and turned away? I don't know which is nuttier, splitting the beloved, announcing that this was, by intent and design, the scheme's purpose, bringing forth the living from the dead, or bringing the dead from the living. But no matter which flavor of crazy one picks, this Allahu. As Halal ben Shakar, we would expect nothing less. Quran 6.096 He parts and separates as the cleaver of the dawn, becoming the sunrise, and he made the night submissive and quiet, mentally disabled, and the bright and glorious sun and the moon thinking and esteemed. That measured, determined, and decreed, the powerful, dignified, and glorious, almighty, the mark and sign, all-knowing. Satan finally composes a complete sentence and incriminates himself with it. And then he caps it with a word salad. Quran 6.097 And he the one who made for you the rising and appearing, stars, that you may guide yourselves with them in the cruel and tyrannical oppression, darknesses, the pious, the land, and the cut and divided, sea. Certainly, we have separated and divided, made clear, the signs for the standing still, people, marked and known. I suspect some believe they understand what they think he said, but I am certain most fail to realize that what they heard is not what he meant. Quran 6.098 And he the one who raised you in the night from a soul, one, so be cool, remain quiet, and leave disregarded and forsaken. Certainly, we have separated and divided, made clear, for standing still, a people, understanding. Be cool, shut up, and be demeaned and disregarded. It's easy if you don't try. Although, sometimes it is better to remain silent and 428 appears stupid than it is to open one's mouth and remove all doubt. Case in point. Quran 6.099 And he the one who sends down from the high and lofty, heavens or sky, water then we go out, bring forth, with it produce, vegetation, every wanted matter. Then we go out, bring forth, from it rendering the forbidden, green plant. We go out, bring forth, from it love or pustules, grain, riding and carried, thick clustered. And from the sifted drizzle, date palm, from its rising or looking, spada, a sheathing bract partly enclosing an inflorescence and spadix on the same axis, acquired and appropriated, clusters of dates, near and low. And concealed devils and veiled demonic gardens of gin of grapes, and the olives, and the pomegranates, resembling and not resembling. Look at its fruit when it fruits and its ripening. Lo, verily, in that signs for standing still, a people, believe. Lo, verily, there are signs in this. And this. Quran 6.100 And they make with Allahi companions and associates for sharing and partnering al-Jinn the devils and the demons, the veiled and concealed, insane, confused, and irrational spiritual beings and he proportioned and fabricated them. And they perforate and tear, feigning and forging to him building, sons, and constructing, daughters, without knowing. He is swimming and rolling in praise, floating in glory, and high and exalted, proudly superior what they describe and assert. Quran 6.101 Creator the high and lofty name, heavens, and the rotating herbs of the ground. How can be for him a begotten son, while not is for him a friend, companion, or company? And he measured and proportioned everything. And he of every matter knower. Since he can't write a lick, is dumb as a brick, more irritating than a tick, and acts like a prick, methinks the snake may need a new shtick. Who do you suppose is speaking and making this announcement on behalf of the dunderhead and cheat? Quran 6.102 That Allahu, your Rabbukum Lord. No God but him, measure everything. So worship him in humility, for 29 obedience, and submission. And he on every matter and affair a guard. Quran 6.103 Not overtake or comprehend him, grasp him, the perceptive or intelligent, the observant or enlightened, the visions, but he overtakes, grasps, the perceptive, intelligent, and enlightened eyes with vision. And he most subtle, shrewd, and aware. Up to a point, he told the truth, that Allahu, Rabbukum your Lord no God. We know this because a being who would require his creations to worship him would be more akin to a psychopath than divine. Moreover, by admitting that the perceptive, intelligent, observant, and enlightened failed to comprehend him, he is acknowledging that he's an inferior communicator. Beyond this, the snake slipped on his tongue because he identified himself as the serpent in the garden. Introducing Satan as he slithered into the garden to beguile Yada Yahowah said, Now the serpent was more subtle, shrewd, and crafty than any life form. Bears YTH/Genesis 3 verse 1. Quran 6.104 Lo. Verily, has come to you eyes to see and vision, perception and illumination, from Rabbikum your Lord. Then whoever sees then for his soul and whoever blind then against himself. And not I am over you a protecting guardian, careful, mindful, or attentive. It remains baffling that 2 billion people believe this rubbish is divine and another 6 billion are afraid to criticize the source of their angst. And even at its best, the Quran isn't even mediocre. Quran 6.105 And thus we turn away, explain, the signs that they say, you have studied, and we separate and sever, make clear, for standing still, people, who know. Quran 6.106 Follow what indicated and suggested, revealed, to you from your Lord. No God but him. And turn away from friends who share in associating with partners, polytheists. Since the Quran seldom identifies the alleged speakers in its contrived conversations, there is no way of unraveling 430 the words such that the message has meaning. And even in this, Allahu has a handy excuse, or perhaps just more of the same. Quran 6.107 If wanted, Allahu not sharing, friendly, or associating. And not we have made you over them a guard and not you over them a trusted witness. Quran 6.108 And not seek a way to make a living or an account for love those whom they seek from other than Allah lest they find the means to seek a living or form a relationship Allah passing by without knowledge. Thus we have made adorning and honorable to every proposal, direction, mother, leader, or community their doing. Then to their Lord their return. Then he will be high and lofty to them, their exalted informer about what they were doing. Yahowah proved that he inspired his prophets by accurately revealing long past and distant future events affecting the life of his people. By contrast, Allah who claims that he will tell everyone what they have done. If we were to possess and deploy a sacred snake decoder widget, the following might say, those who don't believe that Allah is lucid, much less a God, swear by him nonetheless because they like the booty and babes from jihad, but when it comes to some sign or evidence that any of this was true, they knew that proof was non-existent, and so did Allah. Therefore, in response to the naysayers, the sayer said, no signs for you. The signs are for Allah/who only, because they are a cherished figment of his deranged mind and he does not like sharing. So, enjoy the poetry, the rhythm and rhyme, and feign belief if you get my drift. However, bereft of the hocus pocus of a magical decoder ring, we are left with Quran 6.109 And they divide, dispose, and apportion to swear with Allah their oaths for jihad striving and fighting that if came to them a sign or proof they would surely believe in it. Say, only the signs with Allah. And what will you to perceive the poetry that it when it comes not they will believe? 431 inches light of this admission, one announcing that there had not been nor would there ever be any signs validating Allah's existence or the Quran's legitimacy, the ungod abrogated the many hundreds of times he lied and claimed otherwise. It's nothing more than an unsubstantiated demand to believe, surrender, obey, worship, be humiliated, slaughter, steal, and enslave, then die or we will have you slain so that he can torture everyone. And all of the slaves shouted in unison, Allahu Akbar, before slandering and slaughtering some more Jews. Quran 6.110 We will turn their hearts and their eyes as not they believe in it returning before passing by. And we will leave them in exceeding the limits in inordinate rebellion, confused. When the village idiot claims that everyone is stupid, there isn't much light beyond the campfire. And in this case, the least capable may have been the incapacitated snake ineptly playing God. Quran 6.111 And if that we sent down to them the angels and spoken to them the dead and we gathered before them every affair face to face, not they were to believe unless that wants and wills Allahu. But most of them ignorant and stupid. In the previous statements, the ungod admitted that he had lied and that there had been no signs. In this, he admits to lying about sending down his killer angels to murder non-compliant Jews and Arabs. Then he acknowledges that his bragging about bringing the dead back to life might not be accurate either. But, nonetheless, it isn't that Allah/who is inept, it's that he doesn't want to share with those who are equally ignorant and stupid. Since Muhammad as Allah's lone Rasuli couldn't even describe current events accurately, he was the furthest thing from a prophet. And without one, the premise is faulty while the conclusion is true. Quran 6.112 And thus we made for every Nabi prophet Shayatin Satan a dope passing by, al-Insi becoming the sociable for 32 and conversant companion as amicable and familiar company, and the al-Jinni the veiled and insane demons and the concealed and irrational devils Yuhi revealing, inspiring, and suggesting be aid by some to annoy and molest be aid to others to divide and separate, Zukrufa al-Qali the embellished and varnished speech and the adorned and decorated recitals. Gururun to betray and beguile the ignorant and immature as a deceiver. But if wanted your Lord, not they would have done it. So leave them and what they slander and fabricate. I've said it, and now Islam's wannabe God has admitted it. The Quran's non-prophet was inspired by Satan. And Allah ought to know. Satan was so amicable and familiar with Muhammad, he possessed him. To the degree that the Rasuli was conversant, Satan arranged his speech, which was further embellished by devils and demons. They were the mirror image of one another. The Quran was the adversary's most foreboding act of betrayal, one designed to beguile the gullible. In a verse, Quran 6.112 is Islam. It is why we have endured this final insult to our intelligence. After the confession, we return to standard Quranic drivel. Quran 6.113 And so that bend to it hearts those who not believe in the backwards retreat, hereafter, and so they may be content with it and accepting of it, and so that they may earn by committing what they are earning and committing. Quran 6.114 Then is other than Allahi I seek command and control while he the one who descended, coming down to you the writing separating and divisive. And those whom we gave them the writing, they know that it sent down from your Lord in entitled suitability and requirement. So not be among the doubting disputers. Liars lie, it is what liars do. And at his craft, Satan was effective, especially among the ignorant, irrational, and immoral, which is to say that Muslims epitomize these characteristics. And so with broken hearts and bent knees, they accept the unacceptable, earning the consequence of 433 the crimes they have committed against humanity. And it is also that the snake who slithered out of the garden might shed his skin and pretend to be in control. As Allah/who/ha has now admitted, Islam's demonic deity never produced a book or anything in writing, not for Muhammad, and of course, not for Moses. Therefore, those of us who are observant and who consider the testimony Yahowah revealed through his prophets know that the Quranic Lord is lying. He is not entitled nor suitable, so be among the disputers not doubters. Based on what we have heard, there has not been a mature or accomplished speaker reciting the truth on behalf of this rabbi. Moreover, considering how varied Islamic translations and interpretations of the Quran are from one another and from the underlying text, everyone has altered what Muhammad allegedly heard. Quran 6.115 An entirely whole, full-grown, completed, and accomplished speaking your Lord truthful and just. No one can change his speech and he the hearing, the knowing. Quran 6.116 And if you obey most of in the ground, they will err and stray you from way Allahi. Not they follow except the thinking and assumption, and not they accept compute and conjecture. The previous statement is in conflict with itself and clearly at odds with reality, as are the next. Quran 6.117 Lo, verily, your Lord, he knows who strays from his way and he knowing of the directed. Quran 6.118 So swallow and chew, devouring of what remembered high and lofty name Allahi on it if you are in his signs, verses, believers. Satan is fixated on the notion of luring the unsuspecting into swallowing what he is proposing. And why not? It worked for him 6,000 years ago in the garden and is still prevailing with all manner of dunderheads today. Quran 6.119 And what for you that not you swallow and chew, eating of what has been remembered high and lofty name for 34 Lahi on it when indeed he separated and divided, explained in detail, to you what he haram forbid or revered to you except what you are harmed, inconveniently annoyed by the adversity or afflicted by the vicissitudes of time, disease, or death, compelled to it. And, lo, verily, the overwhelming majority surely err and lead astray by their falling down and perishing, beguiling and infatuating fancies bring or conveying, without, knowing. Lo, your Lord, he knowing the passing by beyond the limits. That was somewhat coherently stated for Satan, but nonetheless counterproductive and incriminating. And this next statement sounds like a cover-up. Quran 6.120 Forsake and neglect appearance the crimes and the fat bellies and wombs. Verily, those who gain and acquire the crimes, they will pay for what they were doing. It has become overtly apparent that Muslim women are culpable in the crimes of antisemitism, terrorism, and genocide and their children have been bred and indoctrinated to follow in their footsteps. They should not be perceived as innocent civilians or protected in the midst of Islam's deadly war of extermination against Jews. And here, Allah seems to agree, equating their wombs with the crimes their children inevitably commit. A baby Muslim is no different than a juvenile viper. There is no possibility that it will become anything other than a venomous snake. And speaking of snakes, variations of shaitan and jinn Satan and demons play starring roles in the Quran, appearing 120 and 200 times, respectively. And while there is no equivalent of jinn in the Hebrew text, because it is the Persian word for demon, snake, and devil, Satan was borrowed from the Torah and prophets, where it, unlike the Quran, is used sparingly. Without the definite article, and thus as a word and not a title, Satan adversary appears twice in the Torah, both in reference to human foes, Numbers 22. The title appears throughout Job, but since that book was not inspired by Yahowah, it is irrelevant. And that leaves us with 3 stories about the 435 adversary, 2 in which he wasn't specifically afforded the title, Genesis 3 and Isaiah 14, and Zechariah 3 where it is deployed in a prophetic context. Therefore, among the nearly 500,000 words in the Torah, Nabi, Wa Mizmor, Satan is written twice and demons and devils are never mentioned, but by comparison, in the 87,500 words, 0.17 of the text, of the Quran, we find the adversary's title and his accomplices presented and discussed 320 times. So, someone had a terrible fetish with the adversary title and recited the Quran to resolve it to his liking. Quran 6.121 Not swallow of that not has been remembered lofty name Allahi on it and indeed, it committing wicked disobedience. And lo, the adversary, Satan, devils and demons, reveal and inspire, suggesting to their close friends, guards, and protectors so that they twist, pleading and disputing with you. And if you obey them, lo, verily, you be those who share with friends. It is an interesting but not surprising twist on relationships. In Islam, to be friendly and to play nice with others is a sign of disobedience because sharing is satanic. It is also not surprising that Satan envisions burning those he has imagined resurrecting. Therefore, he has made being a cruel lord appear honorable and fair-seeming. Quran 6.122 is who was dead and we gave him life and we made lahu for him fire and he walks where among the lifted up like who standing erect and castrated in the cruel and oppressive lords, darknesses, not he comes out of it. Thus is made adorned and honored, fair-seeming, to the reconciled, disbelievers, what they were doing. Clandestine plots permeate the Quran, with the best of them perpetrated by Allah and for his amusement. Most are cunning and delusional, circumventing reality while evading the truth about God. Quran 6.123 And thus we made in every entertaining guest, city, or town hard and grievous, arrogant and great committed for 36 criminals acquiring things so that they practice deceit through delusional plots, crafty and cunning, therein. And not they circumvent, cunningly evading, except with themselves and not they know. Quran 6.124 And when comes to them a sign they say, never we will believe until we are given the equivalent what was given Rasuli sent messengers Allahi. Allah who knows where he makes his Rasuli message sent. Will pour forth and inflict, hurtfully smiting, those to gain and acquire things by committing crimes, a subjugating and vile humiliation from Allahi, and an intensely harsh torture, a violent and terrible torment, and a miserable and grievous punishment for what they were circumventing and eluding in cunning plots. This was astute to a point. The pretend orator, had they been an informed and rational critic, would have said, since we know better, because Yahowah proved his existence and inspiration through prophecy, we will never believe anything the ungod of the Quran has to say. But you'll notice that even with Allahi/who/ha putting his words in pretend people's mouths, he was unable to answer the allegations. And it's really embarrassing to lose an argument with oneself. Instead of providing a prophecy, or revealing himself while interacting with and communicating to his people as did Yahowah, Satan stooped to threatening them. His only response was to inflict, smite, and injure, to subjugate and humiliate, to harshly torture, violently torment, and grievously punish men and women by falsely accusing them of doing exactly as he had done, circumventing and eluding detection through a cunning scheme. It's called projection, and it enables perpetrators to play the victim card as we are now witnessing worldwide. As part of his plot, Allahi/who/ha dons the gloves, mask, and robe to become an open-heart surgeon. Evidently, humiliating submission does not come naturally. For 37 Quran 6.125 So whoever wants Allahu that he directs him, he opens and expands his return from, breast or chest, lil Islami for submission to Islam. And whoever he wants that he lets him go astray. He makes his return, breast and chest, narrow and choked, also constricted and oppressed as though ascending, running uphill or climbing, into the lofty and high name, sky or heaven. Thus made Allahu the foul filth, the disgraceful and defiling confusion, even the evil abomination on those who not believe. No matter how many argue otherwise, Islam means submission, not peace. Those who disagree stand in conflict with Allah. And while that would normally be in better company, sometimes we find a gem worth reporting. In this case, thus made Allahu the foul filth, the disgraceful and defiling confusion, even the evil abomination. So it follows. Quran 6.126 And this way your Lord firm, standing up straight, establishes people. Certainly, we have separated and divided, distinguishing, clearly explaining, the signs, verses, for standing still, people, who remember. Quran 6.127 For them, circumambulating, going round and round, home, al-salami the submission and obedience of Islam with their Lord. And he turns them, guarding them, because they were doing. Muslims running in circles, submissive and obedient, is synonymous with Islam. But so is an association with jinn demons and devils. Allah values them, and they reciprocate, endorsing the Quran, Rasuli, and Rabbi. The jinn are kin to Islam's chagrin. Quran 6.128 And day he will collect and gather them all, O kindred society of al-Jinn the devils and demons. Certainly, istakfartum you are surpassing in number, possessing much good, of al-Insi the sociable and conversational companions, cheery and amicable, the mankind. And will say the friends who turn, the protectors and allies from al-Insi the sociable and conversational companions, cheery and amicable, the mankind, our Lord benefited, finding enjoyable and advantageous duna bibadin annoying gnats and molesting mosquitoes, by being divisive and 438 difficult, and we have reached our assigned term which you assigned for us. He will say, the fire your resort to abide, remaining forever in it except what Allah who wants. Lo, verily, your Lord commanding, controlling, knowing. Fortunately for Yisrael and Yehudim, it's Satan, the demons he has enticed, and the Muslims he has enslaved, who will be gathered up and disposed of on this day, their last. So it is reassuring that Allah is claiming them for himself, while at the same time commending them as numerous, beneficial, amicable, and conversant. They are allies. And as a result of the complicity of fellow demons, Islam's rabbi was served. Annoying to be sure, in concert with his molesting Rasuli, they were divisive. And sadistic as ever, the Quranic rabbi is champing at the bit to inflict some nasty punishments, roasting humankind in his hellish fires. It's Islam's version of an eternal flame. The following is peculiar, even for the duplicitous one. Allah is claiming that he has friends after all, even if he is found annoying and molesting his companions. Quran 6.129 And thus we are close to as friends and companions with some of the annoying gnats and molesting mosquitoes in subjugating as cruel lords, biting, mistreating, and annoying others for what they were gaining and acquiring as a wolf. That was senseless. But inane is better than demonic. Quran 6.130 O kindred society al-Jinn the devils and demons and al-Insi the sociable and conversational companions, cheery and amicable, the mankind, did not come to you Rasuli sent messengers from you narrating my signs, verses, and warning you meeting this your day. They will say, we tell on ourselves. And ignorant and immature them the life the down low. And they will tell on themselves that they were kafir reconciled. The admission that devils and demons are kindred spirits who socialize amicably with Allah reaffirms that the voice of the Quran is Satan. Further, the ungod and his 439 non-prophet were sadistic, duplicitous, deadly, and psychotic, traits which demonstrate that Muhammad was the devil's advocate. In a desperate and pathetic, even macabre attempt to fool the foolish into believing that Allah's day of doom is real, we find another contrived conversation whereby those about to be harassed are shown telling on themselves. And should that be insufficiently convincing, the ungod rolls out the 50th edition of the towns we once destroyed. Quran 6.131 That then if not is your Lord one who spoils, wastes, causes death, and destroys the cities and towns for lordly subjugation while their rightful inhabitants unaware. Quran 6.132 And for all steps and ranks for what they did and not your Lord unaware about what they did. I suppose that those who follow in the ungod's bloody footprints, catching civilians unaware and slaughtering them, are to receive a special accommodation, or so says the dunderhead deity who claims to know all. If this next verse were true, there would have been no reason for Muhammad, his terrorist raids, the Quran, Muslims, or Islam. There would have been no call for the wealth and lives of believers either. Quran 6.133 In your Lord, the free of wants, self-sufficient, of what they pardon, the wombs, or the kinship. If he wants, he can take you away and provide a substitute from far away and estranged, very different than you whom he wants as he produced you at night from the scattering and strewing of standing still going backwards. Quran 6.134 Lo, verily, what you are promised given, and not you lag behind or escape. According to Allah, Muslims are so worthless, they are expendable and replaceable. That's hardly reassuring since this subjugating Lord is demanding total obedience, complete submission, abject humiliation, and irrevocable capitulation, in addition to every slave's wealth and life, but even then, they must plunder and slaughter for him. For 40 and there are no options. One either surrenders or is perpetually tortured. Quran 6.135 Say, O my standing still, perform on your being. Lo, I am a doer, an actor, and soon you will know who will be for himself a kibbutu retaliation punishment in the end for striking the heel, going round in circles, circumambulating. Lo, he not crack, furrow, or prosper the oppressive Lord of darkness. Even if we could make sense of the words, we would be left with a sinister and sadistic narrative. So why run around in circles pretending otherwise? Although, there was a stunning confession here, one that I will share 30 passages hence when it is repeated in the final verse. If you recall, this Suratun was named after Allah's favorite animal, cows, to which the Islamic God has some very strange proclivities. Quran 6.136 And they make to Allahi out of what he produced of the tilling and sowing and the easy life and comforts and delights of cows to fix stress and fatigue. And they say, this for Allahi by their claim. And this for our sharing with companions and friends. But what is for their sharing with friends, partners, and companions not reach to Allahi while what is for Allahi then it reaches to their partners' friends who share. Evil and viciously shameful what they decide, exercising their authority. The only issue here was that Satan thought he wasn't getting his full share. We have no idea why Allahi/ha/ who presents bovines in this peculiar manner or conveys what follows, but nonetheless. Quran 6.137 And that made attractive, adorned, and embellished to the overwhelming majority of those who share with friends and associate cooperatively together killing by slaughtering and murdering their begotten, their partners, companions, and friends with whom they cooperate and share so that they cause them to fall down and die, tumbling into a pit. And they conceal and make confusing to them their obedience and submissiveness in their servile religion. And if Allah who wanted, not they have done so. So leave them, forsaking them by cutting them into slices and what 441 they cut by slander and fabrication. Sharing with friends and associating together is so un-Islamic it is equated with murdering children and partners. And yet, Muhammad did both, even tossing extended family in a pit. This is one of many instances in the Quran where Allah who admits that the overwhelming majority of people reject him and his message. So to combat the negative implications and admit that he's just not credible, the ungod claims that he could have been convincing if he had tried, but evidently, humans were not worth the effort. Although, he couldn't avoid doing a little slicing and dicing along the way. So now, returning to cows. Quran 6.138 And they say, these cattle leading an easy life, comfortable and delightful, and tilling and sowing deprived stones. No can taste and swallow, savoring them except whom we want by their claim. And the comforts and delights of cows, their appearance and support, even their backs or loins, forbidden and sacred. And comfortable and convenient, soft and pleasant, cows, not they remember or mention name Allahi. On it, an inventive slander and fabrication against him. He will pay them for what they were cutting and splitting, inventing and fabricating. Love the talking cow bit, with them mentioning the name of Allahi. It's almost miraculous. But how does one go about slandering someone who is promoting bestiality? Do you insult them by calling them moral? Would Allah be offended if we incorrectly reported that he was bright, truthful, and articulate? The more Islam's wannabe God confesses his strange affinity for cows, the weirder the narrative becomes, and the more sexual the overtones appear. Allah is not even drawing the line at necrophilia in bestiality. So that's something special. Quran 6.139. And they say, what in fat stomachs these easy 442 living, soft, convenient, and comfortable cows, pure and genuine, safe and free from embarrassment and appropriate for our males to commemorate and forbidden on our mates and wives. But if is dead, then they in it sharing and participating as partners. He will pay them, rendering a satisfactory compensation, their description and assertion. Lo, verily, he commands and controls, knowing. Quran 6.140. Certainly, deceived and beguiled losers those who murder their begotten, ignorant and imprudent, silly and fickle, without knowledge and forbid, prohibit, and deprive, making sacred and holy what Allah has provided and supplied to them, cutting, splitting, inventing, and slandering on Allah. Lo, verily, they have gone astray and not they are directed ones. There is no indication that infanticide was a widespread issue among Arabs in the 7th century. However, if this had been a problem, then Allah used deplorable discretion in selecting this audience. But that is the least of the Quranic headaches. Allah has a serious problem with jinn. And might I recommend investing in 30 days to a more credible vocabulary? Quran 6.141. And he the one who rose in the night, produced, Jannat and veiled demons, insane devils, and dark and possessed gardens bereft of reason, constructed thrones and to convey the alteration, trellised, built sovereign thrones, trellised, and the sifted drizzle sent down, date palms, the sowing and seeding to follow, replace, and supersede, diverse, its swallowing and devouring. And the olive oils and the pomegranates to be likened and assimilated, ambiguous, dubious, and obscure, similar. Swallow and devour of its fruit when it fruits and give it suitable and required truth day its cutting and mowing down, harvest. And do not eat away or transgress. Lo, verily, he not love the eating away, suckling, or ignorant transgressors. From a word salad comprised of poorly chosen ingredients served with a toxic drizzle we transition to the comforts of cows, unashamed to mount a particularly cute one. But be forewarned, he do not love the suckling transgressors. Say, it isn't so. It's time to say chow to the cow. Surely their 443 is no vow even for a sow to bow to thou now. Quran 6.142. And of the cattle leading an easy life, enjoying the comforts and conveniences of soft and delightful cows, mount to bear and carry, becoming pregnant with a child, and spread out as resting couches, meat. Swallow and chew, eating of what Allah provided you and not follow footsteps al-Shaitan Satan, the adversary, the audaciously rebellious and arrogant one. Lo, he to you passing by and transgressing, separating and severing. Sad to say, but the options are bleak. Either find a cute cow or follow in Satan's footsteps, which would be a miracle in itself since snakes don't have feet. So now it is from swallowing cows and following Satan to a harem of spouses and numerous sheep. There are even a couple of goats for variety's sake. But remember to show the proper decorum because the oft-bent are desirable while the bulls are forbidden, for obvious reasons. The holy heifers are, however, a religious experience. Quran 6.143. 8 couples, spouses, and wives of the numerous sheep, bent and doubled up, 2, and of the harder goats, a bent object of oft-repeated desire, 2. Say, the mentioned males forbidden and sacred, respected and revered, and holy the females or whether contains in it the female wombs. Inform me with knowledge if you are right. My apologies, but I'm going to plead ignorance on this one. It's all too weird for me. While reasonably adventurous, I am never going to ask my wife to moo. So, thankfully, after fornicating with cows, Allah/ha/who wants to celebrate a religious experience with camels. All one has to do is double them up and slit their throats, then apparently they are open to an astonishing orgy with Muslim bovines. Quran 6.144. And of the camels devoted to religious exercises, bent and folded, doubled up, 2, and of the slit, ripped, and split, opening of astonishing cows, doubled up and adjoined. Say, the commemorated males he reveres and respects, considers sacred, thus forbidden, or the females or what contains in it favored female for 44 wombs. Or were you witnesses when enjoined you Allah with this? Then who cruel Lord then who cuts to slander and fabricate on Allah a lie to err, going astray the risen, people, without knowledge. Lo, verily, Allah no direct the standing still, people, oppressive subjugators as lords. I must have skipped past the meeting on the merits of sacred cows with favored wombs, although I may have jumped the line when the opportunity arose to correct Allah. Plenty of weirdness and lots of exceptions, but not a morsel worth savoring. And may I ask, what does a pig have to do to be called a defiled and disobedient abomination? Oink at an inappropriate time. Quran 6.145. Say, not I find in what has been indicated and revealed to me prohibited and sacred, refused and revered to a taster to savor who swallows it except that it be dead or blood flowing and fornicating or flesh swine, for lo, it defiled abomination or disobedience appearing and invoking, by being dedicated to benefit other than Allah on it. But whoever harmed or afflicted, annoying the evil adversity not desired and not passing by transgressing, then indeed, your Lord covering over and hiding favored womb. All Yahowah had to say about eating pork was that it was not conducive to our health. The animal isn't intrinsically bad, even if it is prone to carry disease. Fact is, I'd favor them over Muslims any day. In this next statement, hadu is a verb. Translated it means, to creep and crawl, although it is used to describe being Jewish. Evidently, they were told that slitting cows open was discouraged but stolen sheep could be revered. Quran 6.146. And to those who how to creep and crawl like Jews we forbid as sacred all with claws to scratch overcoming victoriously and of the slit, ripped, and cut open cows, and the obtained spoils of sheep, we deprive and revere, forbidding as sacred to them their fat except what carried appearing mounted or oblivious or the dark green, red, or black, entrails, or what intermingled and mixed with the greatly important and big, bone. That their payment, recompense, their desires and endeavors for 45, rebellion. And, indeed, we surely are truthful. Since the batteries ran out on my deciphering Allah widget, I'm going to take a pass on the previous verse other than to say, if these statements are truthful, I'm Genghis Khan. Quran 6.147 But if they lie you, deny, then say, your Lord what favored womb ample to embrace but not will be sent back his mighty adversity in misfortune, evil impoverishment, wrath, from the standing up, the people, acquiring something while committing a crime. Who were, they, and you? What was the lie and how was it resolved in this with adversity and misfortune? Quran 6.148 will say those who share with friends and companions, if had wanted, Allah who not we have shared with friends or associated with companions or partners. And not our fathers and not we have forbidden or revered of a matter or affair. That lied those who from near accepting before them until they tasted our adversarial and evil punishment. Say, is with you of the knowledge, they produce it for us. Not you follow except the thinking and doubt, assumption and belief and not you but compute and conjecture. So, if we are to make sense of this, those sharing with friends said that they would have been happy to be stingy and antisocial if that was what Allah who wanted, even if it was forbidden or revered by their fathers. That, however, was a lie, even though they were on the cusp of accepting Islam. But once they came to realize that the ungod was a sadistic psychopath poised to torture them, they changed their minds, which suggests that they became Muslims. Nonetheless, they remained dumb as stones and equally impotent. This was followed by a double negative and a pair of oxymorons. Having now contemplated our systematic and comprehensive analysis of the overwhelming majority of Allah's 114 suratuns, we are in a position to agree at long last, at least up to a point. For 46 Quran 6.149 say with Allahi the repeated argument and proof of dispute the reaching and attaining the utmost. And if he wanted surely he have guided you together. Allah should be more careful with what he asks for. Quran 6.150 say, come, produce, your witnesses, those who witness that Allah prohibited and revered this. Then if they witness then not witness with them. And not follow desires those who lied our signs and those who not believe in the retreating backwards, hereafter, while they with their Lord deal justly and fairly, set up equals. I'm running out of innovative and insightful ways to critique gibberish. So, let's let Allahi/ha/who recite away and see where it leads. After all, how does one respond to, not slaughter your begotten of flaying a person in loving affection? Quran 6.151 say, be high and lofty, exalted, come, I will recite what has revered and prohibited you Lord to you. That not you share with friends or partner with him in affair or matter and begotten, the parents, good and not slaughter your begotten of flaying a person in loving affection, poverty. We supply for you and for them. And not be near excessive immorality what apparent of them and what fat belly, concealed. And not kill the soul which Allah has made forbidden and sacred, except by suitable requirement and deserving entitlement. That enjoined on you with it so that you may reason. There seems to be an exception for most everything, especially mass murder. Quran 6.152 and not be near abundant wealth the orphans, except with that which good until he reaches tightly bound, severe and terrible, maturity. And reach the end the measure and the weight swerving unjustly. Not we take pains to pretend burdened any soul except its comprehension, wealth, encompassing, capacity. And when you speak then be just even if he is one of a near, relative. And enjoin and swear, covenant or pledge, Allahi reach the end, fulfill. That has enjoined on you with it so that you may remember. For 47 I am speechless. Unfortunately, Allah wasn't. Quran 6.153 and that this my path standing still, straight, so follow it. And not follow the paths. Then they separate and divide you from his path. That has enjoined on you with it so that you may become protected. What on earth does Moses have to do with any of this? Quran 6.154 Moreover, we gave Musa the writing, book, entirely complete on the one who did good and separating and dividing every affair. And a guidance and favor so that they may in meeting their Lord believe. Quran 6.155 and this a writing, book. We have sent it down, blessed, so follow it and ward off and guard against fear, so that you may receive favor and pardon. No, the Quran was not in writing and Allah had nothing to do with the Torah. Further, the Quran was only a blessing to pedophiles, rapists, mass-murdering terrorists, and thieves. And there are no pardons for those committing these crimes. Muslims who believe that the Torah and Quran were revealed by the same Spirit are worshipping a schizophrenic deity. And that is not sane. Quran 6.156 lest you say, only was sent down the writing on walking around and wandering about, the two groups, from accepting us and lo, we were about their reading and study certainly unaware. While even Allahu/hi/ha shouldn't have said this, it is reassuring to hear the snake admit that he couldn't read and was a lousy student, or at least something to that effect. Quran 6.157 or you say, if that was sent down to us the writing, surely we have been better guided than them. So, verily, has come to you separation and disunion from your Lord and a direction and a favor. Then who oppressive Lord and tyrant that who lies with signs Allahi and turns away from them. We will pay those who turn away from our signs an evil and corrupt, vexing and wicked punishment because they were to turn away. For 48 it was a rational argument. Since God had sent his people a tremendous wealth of written testimony, all validated through prophecy, and every word providing instructions for living a long and productive life, they were vastly better guided than Muslims drenched in this verbal diarrhea. But how can Allahi/who/ha claim with a straight face that there is separation and disunion when in other places he states that there is no distinction between the religions? Further, how can anyone perceive that this demonic death cult culminating in evil and wicked punishment is a favor? And of course, since the holy roastings and scalding baptisms are performed personally by Allahi/ha/who, wouldn't this admission mean that he was evil and corrupt, vexing and wicked? This being the case, might I recommend disassociating from the adversary? Quran 6.158 Are they seeing, waiting, except that comes to them the angels or comes your Lord or come some signs your Lord day come some signs your Lord not will benefit a soul its faith not it had believed from accepting and admitting or acquired through its belief good. Say, see, lo, verily, see those who see, wait. Allah needs an editor to keep him from incriminating himself by contradicting himself. He has previously noted that his killer angels cannot be seen. He has also admitted that there have been no signs. And if, when the alleged signs are finally revealed it is too late and does no good, then why bother? And, dare we ask, what does, see, lo, verily, see those who see, mean? In pretending to be God, Islam's impostor would have done better if he had paid more attention to the Berith family-oriented covenant relationship such that he didn't trip over his forked tongue ranting about his servile religion. Moreover, there is nothing Yahowah hates more than the institution Allah is promoting. Moving on to the next problem, evidently, Allah he didn't bother to read the job description of a prophet. Not 449 only are they literate, but they accurately recorded in writing influential future events in the distant past. They do not recall the meaningless lives of the recently departed. Quran 6.159 Indeed, those who separate and divide by being discriminating their obedience and submissiveness in their religion and become spread, published or dispersed, friendly or similar, sects, you are not with them in an affair. Only their affair with Allah then he will be high and mighty to inform as a prophet of what they were doing. Unfortunately for the world and the humans living in it, the best deed a Muslim can perform is to die while slaughtering others, beginning with Jews. Quran 6.160 Whoever came with a good deed, then for him 10 standing erect, mutilated or castrated the likes of it. And whoever came with an evil or wicked, corrupt or annoying deed, then not he will be repaid except the standing erect, mutilated or castrated, or the equivalent of it. And not they be cruel lords or tyrannical subjugators, be wronged. Since Muhammad was an inarticulate and illiterate, dim-witted and dishonest sadist and psychopath, a rapist, womanizer, pedophile, assassin, mass murderer, liar, terrorist, slave trader, and thief, crediting the Rabbi Allah/who/ha with his guidance might not be the best possible endorsement. Moreover, without co-conspirators and fellow raiders, with whom stolen babes and booty were shared, Islam wouldn't exist today. Just as there was no rational justification for including Moses in this delusional rant, Abraham has no business in it either. Both were guided by Yahowah and they were anti-religious. Quran 6.161 Say, Lo, me, has guided me, Rabbi to a path standing still, straight, and obedient, submissive, and servile religion standing still, right, submissive and obedient religion Ibrahima. And not he was from the friends who share, the co-workers or partners, nor those who associate cooperatively, polytheists. For 50 I beg to differ, because Abraham's partnership with Yahowah led to the covenant, making it possible for us all to associate cooperatively and share with God. Moreover, in this very Suratun, the ungod presented Islamic Ibrahim making all manner of pagan pronouncements. So, should the faithful prefer their God not be a hypocrite and the founding father of their religion not to be a polytheist, Allah and revisionist Abe must be excluded from consideration. And as a result, Allah's next conceded command should be renounced. Quran 6.162 Say, Verily, my salat prostration prayer and my rites of worship and sacrifices in servitude, and my living and my dying for Allahi, Rabbi the known, Lord the worlds. It is astonishing that so few have correctly noted that it is irrational for Allah to claim Abraham and the Torah as his own and then impose religious rites that are in complete conflict with them. Abraham's relationship with Yahowah and the purpose of the Torah, its berith and micro-EY, are to resolve the problems associated with religion, not to impose more of it. Islam is, therefore, a giant stride in the wrong direction. While the Torah reflects Yahowah's character, in the Quran we find humankind's foremost adversary. Satan is a loner, unwilling to share the universe with anyone, including man and God, although he has a strange affinity for cows. Quran 6.163 No sharing, friends, cooperation, partnering, or associating lahu for him and with that I have been commanded. And I am first to submit in Islam. While it is likely true that Muhammad was the first Muslim, by saying so in the Quran, the entire narrative is appended and negated. Since this reprehensible Rasuli was the first to submit in Islam, Adam, Noach, Abraham, Lot, Moses, Aharon, Daud, Shalomo, Alexander the Great, and the mythical Zechariah, John, and Jesus were 451 miscast as Muslims. Their stories do not belong in the ungod's book. And without them, apart from the irritating never-ending argument, situational scriptures to accommodate Muhammad's appalling existence, the sadistic taunts of painful punishments, and the deadly demands to wage war against all mankind, there would be very little left. The answer to the opening question is, no, because the only one to benefit from the corruptive plague of Islam was Allahi/ha/who. Quran 6.164 Say, is benefit, corruption, and infection rendered other than Allahi? I seek a Lord while he the Rabu every matter. And not acquired every soul except against itself and not bears a burden, burdened by a burden going backwards and retreating, another/hereafter. Then to your Lord you return. Then he will inform you as if an exalted prophet what you were replacing, superseding, and substituting, corrupting and altering, differing. The reason the ungod was so insistent that not bears a burden, burdened by a burden going backwards and retreating, is that the Mashiach Messiah and Ben, El Son of God, our Yasha, Savior, Daud/David, bore our collective and individual guilt on matzah unyeasted bread, carrying it into Sheol, doing so after serving us as the Zeroath sacrificial lamb on Pesach Passover, leading the way home on Bikurim firstborn children. Even in a cesspool, we occasionally find evidence worth examining. In this case, what we have been witnessing from the beginning is Satan's attempt at replacing, superseding, and substituting himself for Yahowah by corrupting and altering the Torah and reality. And with that admission, here now, some 3,700 pages after we commenced our tour of Islamic hell, we have but one parting salvo to endure. Not surprisingly, while it begins with a lie, deceit is followed by a repeat of the 452 previous confession. Quran 6.165 And he the one who made you, replacing, superseding, and substituting, corrupting and altering, successors, the rotation in expectation the earth and raised some of you superior in rank, overcoming and surpassing the bitten, annoyed, and molested, divided and separated, others, by steps and degrees to gradually deceive, ranks, so that he may try and test you, not caring or even paying attention, such that you wither and decay, ceasing to exist, with what he has given you. Lo, verily, your Lord is prompt, sudden, and quick to hasten al-Akab the striking on the heel, punishing by retracing his steps. And certainly he is certainly covering over and hiding, seeking protection and a pardon, Rahim. No doubt, there has been an onslaught of replacing, superseding, and substituting, corrupting and altering, and countless men and women have been bitten, annoyed, and molested, divided and separated, as a result of what the serpent has spawned. Beginning with the nocturnal encounter with this demon in the cave long ago, it has been Satan's design, by steps and degrees to gradually deceive so that he may try and test you, not caring or even paying attention, such that you wither and decay, ceasing to exist, with what he has given. While a revealing confession, the snake was inept, so he was unable to impose his plan, bringing it to the intended conclusion. His ballyhooed last day, the day of doom, would not be hastened, be prompt or quick, but tarry for 14 centuries. And when it finally transpires on Yom Kippurim in year 6000 Yah, sunset in Jerusalem, October 2nd, 2033, the outcome will not be to Satan's liking. The fact is, this serpent's fate was decreed to play out this way 5,591 years ago, keying off the operative word in this final statement, Akab, written as Ikab here in Arabic. Lo, verily, your Lord is prompt, sudden, and quick to hasten al-Akab the striking on the heel, punishing by retracing his steps. And certainly, he is certainly covering over and hiding, seeking protection and a pardon, Rahim. 453 It was another confession, one few have understood. The admission to striking on the heel goes all the way back to Yahowah's declaration to this serpent after he misappropriated his instructions to Adam in the garden. But before we go there, be aware that Akab serves as the foundation of Yaakov's name. And he is Yisrael, the father of the chosen people. It is in his name where we find the contrast between Yahowah and Halal, between the Torah and Quran, and between the Berith and religion, especially Islam. Yaakov means reward or consequence. Expounded upon, in Yaakov we see, my stance, I grab the heel, Jacob, recognizing that it is from Akab, to receive a benefit or suffer a penalty for circumventing and overreaching, digging in by being stubborn or embedding one's heels to be steadfast. This choice between God and the adversary as revealed in Yaakov's name, offering the ultimate reward or the direst consequence, was initially presented in 3968 BCE, then affirmed in writing in 1447 BCE, where we find one of the most telling of all prophecies, especially considering Islam's hatred of Yaakov's descendants, Yisrael and Yehudim. Yahowah, Yahowah, God, Elohim, said, Amar, to El, the spellbinding serpent, Wahanachash, the sorceress snake, this venomous viper, and poisonous cold-blooded reptile, this tempting and toxic creature, from Nachash, the one who enchants and captivates regarding the divine, the one who is religious and pretends to inspire prophets, as a consequence of, KY, you having acted in this way, Asazoth, of you having engaged in this manner, you have brought a curse upon yourself, error. Ada, earning a bad retribution for yourself, more than any other, Min Kol, beast, Behema, more than any form of life, Min Hachaya, of this environment, Hasada. On, Al, your belly, Gachown Ada, you shall 454 move about, Halak, and dirt, Apar, you shall eat, Akal, all, Kol, the days, Yaumim, of your existence, Chaim Ada. Bears YTH 3:14. Hostility and animosity, Wa'iba, enmity as an adversary with a deep-seated dislike and rancor, bitterness and ill will, I will constitute, SHYTH, I will set forth, between, Bain, you, Ada, and between, Bain, the woman, Ha-Isha, and between, Wa-Bain, that which you sow, Zerah, Ada, and her offspring, Wa-Zerah, Hai, her seed, that which she propagates and proliferates. He shall batter and crush, who shuf, he will press upon and overwhelm, striking, your uppermost perceptions, Ada Rosh, that which you value most, including your desire to be the foremost authority and highest lord. And you shall seize upon and strike, trying to overwhelm by taking advantage of, Ada shuf, pressing upon, his heel with the propensity to be deceptive and circumventing and treacherous in supplanting, controlling and hindering by being mistaken and misleading, who Akab, his errant and restrictive stance, his misguided footsteps, and insidious overreaching, suffering the penalty for overreaching and then digging in, Bears YTH/ in the beginning/ Genesis 3 verse 15. Not surprisingly, it turned out just that way, with the serpent affirming Yahowah's prophecy throughout the Quran before finally signing his name to the admission here in the 6th Suratun. Allah is as he has cast himself, Satan. Ah, but not to worry, my senseless submissive slaves. Just say Allah, do a rocket or two, maybe a salat, say some Allahu Akbars, and we'll chat again in hell when you arrive. Just be sure to abduct, rape, plunder, and decapitate some Jews along the way. Or not. 455 You may have noticed that Allah concluded his confession by truthfully admitting, and certainly, he is certainly covering over and hiding, seeking protection and a pardon, Rahim. The gravest crime ever committed was Satan impersonating God. Second to that was his insistence that his slaves, Muslims, annihilate humankind on his behalf. The Quran exists as a cover-up, seeking to hide the evidence, keeping it from future victims until it is too late. Time is now running out. Also, Satan seeks a reprieve from the punishment Yahowah imposed upon him for misappropriating and misconstruing his instructions some 6,000 years ago. And while that pardon will not occur, it is telling that our review of the Quran concludes with Rahim. As a result of rabbis systematically removing Yahowah's name from his testimony and their lives, Rahim became the substitute that Arab converts to Judaism had used in place of Yahowah. Once incorporated into the Quran, Rahim became one of Allah's attributes, his way of saying that he was Yahowah. But there is only one Yahowah. Continue reading.